provided for in the following manner: by posting of a copy of said notice upon the bulletin board in the Township Municipal Building on May 6, 2021, by emailing of a copy of said notice to the Asbury Park Press, Tri-Town News, and Star Ledger for information and publication on May 6, 2021, by filing a copy of said form of notice in the Township Clerk's office on May 6, 2021. The public will be allowed to attend and will be allowed to participate pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Law. The public is reminded that civility and decorum will be maintained during the meeting. Any contracts awarded at this meeting or between now and the next meeting will be required to comply with the requirements of Public Law 1975, Chapter 127, also known as New Jersey Administrative Code 17:27. I'll proceed with roll call. Councilman Bonovich?
Present.
Councilwoman O'Donnell? You're on mute, Councilwoman.
Here.
Thank you. Councilwoman Richmond?
Present.
Deputy Mayor Russo?
Here.
And Mayor Berger?
Present.
Thank you. Resolution R21-155, authorizing the entrance into executive session for the following items: attorney-client privilege, the SED ordinance adoption, potential litigation, outdoor events, and Turpac Road Group has been removed. Contractual, a shared service agreement. May I have a motion?
Motion to go in executive session?
I'll second.
Okay, Councilman Bonovich,
Yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell,
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Russo,
Yes.
and Mayor Berger.
Yes.
Thank
The exec, do you want me to read this? Or you want me to read it later? The executive? Okay, I'll do it later.
Thank you.
So at this time, it is 6:06. Is there any reason to go into executive session?
Yes, Mayor. The clerk just outlined the attorney-client privilege regarding adoption 021-10, potential litigation for outdoor events, and to discuss a shared service agreement under contractual items.
So we'll need a motion, yes? To go into executive?
Yes, we did already.
That was already done.
We were there. We said yes, yes, and yes, and yes, and yes. And yes.
We voted.
Jesus Christ, okay. Because I'm reading emails and doing this all at the same time. All right. Thank you. I'll see you in the next meeting. Good evening, everyone. I would like to reopen the meeting. It is May 11th, 2021. Howell Township Municipal, this is the municipal building, is where the gentlemen are. We are all at our homes. And this is the regular council meeting. I would like to start by saying the executive session minutes from tonight's meeting can be disclosed to the public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists. At this time, I would like to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, and please a moment of silence for all fallen soldiers, as well as police officers and first responders. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Brian, that's wonderful. That was wonderful. I love it. Thank you so much. It was very cool. That made the meeting for me. At this time, we are going to discuss the 2021 municipal budget public hearing. So I would like to open up the budget public hearing portion.
Okay, Mayor, I'll make an announcement. Any members of the public that wish to address the council related to the budget, please raise your hand. And I will move you into the room so you can ask your question. I have Ms. Tina Smilek.
And just one final reminder before we get started with everybody, we have a lot on the agenda tonight. So we are limiting the comment section to an hour total and to 5 minutes a resident. So if people can respect it, we'll be able to move along as much as we can and as quickly as we can.
I concur. So I'm definitely, Susan, if you would keep us on time, that would be
Absolutely.
really great. Thank you very much. Also, when we have updated and brought back some of the rules for a meeting. And so in the meeting, we need to say our names and address. And if we're on a call, we need to be on the call.
Okay. We have Ms. Smilek that's moved into the room.
Tina Smilek, 33 Charles Street. Are we talking about the cap ordinance also on this, or is just the budget?
Budget only.
Okay, so cap ordinance, you'll open up again for another?
Yes.
Okay.
Tina,
just
can you
want-
put your camera on? Would you mind?
If I can.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So I just want to say that it's been a hard year for everybody. I think the budget was well thought out. I think it's up. I would like to see it a flat budget, but I think it's nice that it's at least the rate is flat. So now it's going to come down to assessments and whether the assessments are done or not. It was a hard year, and I'd like to say thank you to all of you because it was tough money-wise, it was tough employee-wise, and everything else. So hope next year we can at least maybe try to get taxes down a little, but keeping somewhat steady is helping us a lot. So thank you all very much. And the only thing I wanted to add is that the 6-year plan for, you put everything on here for capital. So the 6-year plan, it's not spread out. Is everything, when is that, like you have a light on there for West Farms and Fort Plains. When is that going to be done? I mean, every project on there, you're not doing them all at once in this upcoming year. I mean, I think what helped last year is maybe that we didn't have capital on it this year, but.
Ms. Smilek, I have listed all of the items that were requested in capital on the capital budget that is part of the state's budget form. When the council does discuss what items they do want to and not want to include in the bond ordinance, that capital budget and 6-year plan will be amended to conform with the items that are finally included in this year's 2021 capital budget. But in lieu of not having any plan at all, I had listed everything that was proposed by the department heads, and that list can obviously be whittled down by the governing body.
Okay, I know it's going to be a little, but some things are really needed. So is there a way, I know Councilman Bonovich asked last year, to see in the future what 6-year outlook is going to be? Because these council members, I mean, they have a hard enough time. They don't have the knowledge you have to see what their future in capital is going to be going forward. So they know if they can add, if they can subtract, you know, is there going to be, so you're going to take all those things and you're going to spread it out over 6 years when you talk with council?
Yes, I mean, it's as far as, you know, what projects need to be done, and then, you know, depending on the time course of, you know, how long the project takes, what years would funding sources be applied to. All of the departments were notified to try to plan a 6-year program as best they could. What I did receive is what was put onto the budget sheet. So
Thank you. And one last thing is, was anything changed from when this released until you're passing it now? Were there any changes made?
not at all, ma'am.
Not at all. So it's running. Guys, congratulations on a very hard year. Thank you for all your work. Thank you for everything you're doing. And I'll talk to you again later, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Stand by a second. I have a Joseph Kahn that I'm moving into the room. In the meantime, any other members of the public that wish to ask questions about the budget, please use the raise your hand feature.
Mr. Khan, your camera, please.
Mr. Khan, you're in the room. You can address the governing body as soon as you unmute and turn your camera on, please. Just state your name and address.
Mayor, may I just say, because people on the phone may not know this, but if they're on the phone, it's not easy just to raise their hand. They have to hit *9, and that'll help them raise their hand. And then if they hit *6, they can unmute. I learned that on the planning board. So anybody that's on a call that wants to raise their hand, they can hit *9, and anybody who wants to unmute and is on a call, they hit *6.
I see 4 on the phone.
Yeah, I'm trying to get them to unmute, see if this will work. Okay. Meantime, I'll move him back out of the room since it's not responding.
I think we lost Councilwoman O'Donnell as well.
Yeah, I'll bring her back. She was having some tech issues earlier.
Okay.
Mr. Gazarovski, you are in the room. You can address the governing body. If you have a question related to the budget.
You're not muted now.
Please put on your
Gazarovski,
camera.
question related to the budget.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm present to attend this meeting. It's my understanding that there are a number of ordinances which are before the board this evening. And when
Gazarovski, we're discussing the budget right now. Do you have any questions related to that? This is a hearing for that.
You want those raised right now at the beginning of the meeting?
Do you have a question related to the 2021 budget that's been introduced? That's what we're holding a hearing on.
I do not. I have a question with regard to basically the last ordinance, which is in the form of a resolution.
Okay, we'll get to that later in the meeting.
That's
At that point, you can raise your hand and we'll bring you into the room then.
I understand that.
Thank you.
Let's give Ron the privilege of let him back in the room first.
Okay. Next, I have Steve that I'm bringing into the room. Steve, if you could unmute and turn your camera on, please state your full name and address for the record.
Yes, good evening. I just wanted to mention, when you bring someone into the room, the system actually goes blank for a second and it sort of reboots Zoom. So there is a delay when you bring someone into this room for some reason. I'm not sure why that happens. I haven't seen that on other Zooms, but that being the case, anyway, I had a question in regard to the budget. I'm curious what the salary looks like, the salary portion of this budget looks like this evening. What's the increase? Where's the council raises sit in regard to this budget? Last time I was on, there was a discussion of a 60% plus increase for salaries for council members, and I'm curious if that's included in this budget.
To answer your question, yes. Were you asking about all salaries or it's just specific to the council?
Well, right now it's just specific to the council. What portion of the salary has been allocated to the council salary compared to last year? What's the increase?
Last year, there was $7,500 per council person allocated. This year, I included $12,000 per council person in my budget that I presented.
Okay, again, I'm just going to go on record that, I understand salaries are, your salary is low, probably for the hours you put in, you make pennies on the hour, but again, that's what you signed up for. That's what you were elected to do. It's unfortunate that we play political games along the way, and depending on who's running what time of year, they don't want to put in for a salary increase. So instead of putting increases in, 2 or 3% a year on an annual basis, we play this charade and makeup game. And, quite frankly, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. Millions of people are out of work. People are in food lines. Okay, we can't even get people to work because they're on unemployment and they're probably making more than they make engaged somewhere working, a lot of people. But to present a 60% plus increase all at once is just unfathomable. I can't imagine how anyone in this time could put forth a budget asking for doubling your salary, basically, 60% increase. We have people that are getting no raises. We have people that are being laid off. Okay, unemployment sky high. And, again, I don't think the timing is correct, and I don't think the amount is correct. If you told me you were asking for 3% and you're going to propose 3% every year, I could go along with that. I see a lot of people out in the workforce get a salary increase between 1% and 3% annually, and that's reasonable. But to go all at once, okay, and double your salary, basically, I have an issue with that. One salary proposal I do agree with, and I'll tell you why, was the OEM manager. I agree with that becoming a full-time job. I think in a township like Howell, there's a very good reason to have a full-time OEM manager on staff to address issues. And I found him extremely helpful during the COVID situation with the shots being delivered by the township. He was very accommodating to people. He responded to emails. He got back to people in a very short amount of time. He did his job well. So I certainly can go along with that. I think your salary, from what I saw, was $49,000 for that position. I think is low, to be honest with you. I don't know if that's a full-time position or that's part-time. But again, I think that's a reasonable position to put into the budget. And back to your salary, I got to also say, and I know you have nothing to do with the freehold commissioners, but they're playing the same charade. They put forth a increase in their salary and didn't even publish it. They didn't even have a public meeting. So at least you're having a public meeting where someone can talk about your salary ordinance. So I give you credit for that. And that's all I have to say. I just think the timing is wrong. And to ask for that kind of salary increase at this point in juncture in time, I think is doing a disservice to the community and yourselves, because it's going to be held against you at some point in the future. So other than that, I thank you for everything else you've done and keep up the good work.
Sir, can you please state your full name and your address for the record?
Yes. No, I'm sorry. Stephen Morlino, 51 Peachstone Road, Howell, New Jersey, 37 years.
And Steve, Mr. Molino, I like to address what you brought up, and it's a very valid point. These raises come every 8 years, every 9 years. It's like once a decade. And you know what? If it was 30% every 10, 3% in 10 years, we'd be at the 60. But it is a pandemic. And just to let you know that if this budget passes, we still have
30 seconds.
We still have to pass a salary ordinance. So, I'm not too fond of the 60% either. I'll let you know.
All right. Again, I encourage the council to consider doing a percentage every year instead of doing this kind of thing. It just doesn't sit well with the public, the taxpayers. It just doesn't sit well.
Well noted. Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We have Barbara that are moving into the room. While I'm doing that, just for the general public, if you wish to address council on the topic of the budget, please either raise your hand, or if you're on the phone, you can use the *9 feature. Barbara, you're in the room. You can address the governing body. Please state your name and address for the record.
Barbara Dixell, 62A Piazza Vittoria, Freehold, New Jersey. I need to address the salary part of this budget. Again,
Barbara, can you put your camera on, please?
it is. Do it again. I pressed it. I pressed the unmute. I did. Can you press it again?
Yeah, we don't see you. We do hear you, but we don't see you. Oh, there you go.
There I go. All right, Barbara Dixell, 62A Piazza Vittoria, Freehold, New Jersey. I'm going to comment again on following Stephen Morlino. I think it's an outrage to go from 7,500 to 12,000. As I said at the last meeting, 12,000 is a salary. It's not a stipend. And when you get this salary, please make sure that they put in this budget that you're going to pay income tax and Social Security, because it's a salary. It should not be a stipend. Absolutely not. I'll agree to 9. I will agree to 9,000. But I'm not going to agree to 12,000. But of course, I don't vote on anything. I just sit here and grind my teeth. So, but again, I think it's an outrage. And are you people going to read the budget tonight in full, line by line?
No.
Why not?
There's a lot of lines.
Well, how are we going to know what's in this budget if we don't know what's in the budget before you vote on it?
The budget
Mrs.
was,
Dixell, this budget was advertised in the newspaper. There were copies that were made available at the township clerk's office. There is a resolution that is on as part of our budget resolution package that determines that we can read the 2021 budget by its title only.
So again, we're all in the dark. You can't get to town hall. It's impossible. All right. So again, I oppose the salary ordinance and any other wild raises in salary. Think again, like Morlino said, you got a pandemic. People are out of work. People are going to be on food lines. Now you're going to be on gas lines because you're not going to have gas either. So please be reasonable. For God's sake, be reasonable. And if you pay $12,000, pay income tax and pay Social Security like the rest of us are going to get hung for a big increase in taxes in Howell Township, I'm sure. All right. Thank you all. Thank you. Carry on. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Barbara.
Mayor, just
I'll
as a
take
point of
further-
reference, I did want to make the citizenry know that all 5 governing body members are subject to the same Social Security and Medicare taxes that all of the township employees are. So there are no changes as far as that goes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mayor, as of right now, I don't see any other questions. I would recommend give it a second. Any other members of the public that wish to address the governing body with questions about the budget, please raise your hand. If you're on the phone, use the *9 feature. Mayor, I'm not seeing anybody else.
Okay, so then I would like to close the municipal budget public hearing for the budget. Do I need a motion to do that? No.
no. Public hearing and adoption for the municipal cap ordinance, ordinance 021-8 to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank. New Jersey statute annotate 40A:4-45.14. Ordinance 021-8 introduced and passed on first reading on April 13th. 2021 and published according to law is now being taken up for further consideration in public hearing. Affidavit of publication of this ordinance was in the Asbury Park Press issue of April 16, 2021, submitted, and is noted that a copy of the ordinance has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building and that copies were available to the general public upon request. Mayor, would you like to open the public hearing only for ordinance 21-8?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Keegan, is there anybody waiting to speak on this? You're muted. Sorry.
About that, Mayor. Yes, any members of the public that wish to address the governing body on the cap bank ordinance, please raise your hand. If you're on the phone, you can use the *9 feature. I have Tina Smilek. I'm moving into the room.
Do I have to repeat everything? You need me to
Yeah.
repeat the address and everything?
Yes, if you would, for the record, please.
Tina Smilek, 33 Charles Street. My question is, from what I read, just tell me if I'm correct. This is a 3.5% increase over the previous year. And of that, 993,603 is over the 2% cap. Is that correct?
Not exactly.
I figured I had it wrong.
So let me explain. Okay, so in the budget, there are appropriations that are subject to the 1977 appropriations cap. There are certain appropriations that are not, such as debt service, grants, dispatch services, LoSAP, receipts from uncollected taxes. So the state every year gives us a cost of living percentage that is an automatic increase that the township is allowed to increase its inside cap appropriation, which that would be salaries of all of the other departments, statutory, pension payments, our utilities, stuff of that nature. The state statute allows us to increase that percentage increase up to 3.5% of what it was last year. So 397,441.50 was our automatic increase by the state. 993,000 is what we are increasing our appropriations cap allowable of what our inside cap appropriations can go up to. If there are any unused cap amounts, they could be banked for 2 budget years. So we would have it available for 21 and 22. Historically, we've done this every year that I've been here. It doesn't necessarily, it's just because we're doing this, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're budgeting that much more in appropriations. It's literally a barometer that we can gauge what our appropriations are allowed to be.
So how much are we using from previous cap?
This year we are using $278,283.
And how much do we have left for future caps?
For future caps, bear with me a moment, $2,253,000 is what we would have available between 2019, 2020, and 2021's increases. This year, between pension and the recycling contract, because those are in cap appropriations, that was $1 million hit straight to our inside cap appropriations. So yes, these are the situations that using the cap, having a cap bank is beneficial for, that if we didn't have cap bank, that we could have used that we would have had to have minimized our appropriations elsewhere. So that's where something like that becomes beneficial.
We're allowed to use 2.1. We're only using 278,283.
From prior year's caps, yes,
Prior
ma'am.
year's caps. No, that's very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Tina.
Thank you.
Okay, Mayor, next we have Joseph Astralian. I apologize if I'm doing a number on your name. Moving into the room. Mr. Astralian, if you could unmute and turn your camera on, state your name and address, and you can address the council with any questions regarding the camp bank ordinance.
I apologize. I raised my hand before I intended to, because I really want to address an ordinance which comes later. So
Okay.
I will back off and hit the button.
Okay, next, Mayor, I have Steve moving into the room. While we're doing that, any members of the public that have a question about the bank ordinance, please either raise your hand or use the *9 feature if you're on the phone. Steve,
Again, it's just a quick question in regard to, are we expecting any influx of money from the federal government's rescue plan or whatever they're calling it these days?
5.1 million.
How much?
5.1.
9.1. So that's,
Oh, no, 5. I wish 9. Ooh.
oh, 5.1.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's a time limit to use that money to 2023. Is that applied to this?
I think it goes to 2024. They just released it yesterday. There's a
Okay.
lot, and it's pretty lenient. I thought it was gonna be a little more. We could use it for infrastructure. We could use it for shortages in tax revenue, shortages in sewage. There's a lot of things we could use it for.
So, I'm just curious, have we earmarked what we're going to do with that? Is it going to go towards capital infrastructure? Or something that doesn't have to be recurring, some one-shot deal that hopefully is not being used for salaries. So.
No, and it cannot be used for salaries. It cannot be used for, that's where it can't be used, but it can.
If I
use
could
for
interrupt real quick,
infrastructure and stuff like
Sir,
that.
do you have any questions regarding the cap bank ordinance? That is what we're doing the public hearing on right now.
Okay, fine. But at some point, we will see a list of where this $5 million is going to be expended.
Yeah, it could be used for like, for instance, like radio systems for Southern or the.
Well, we're
PD.
still waiting for guidance from the state and from the federal government on what it can and can't be used for. It hasn't been finalized yet, so we're waiting to see. And then once that's decided and once the final amount is decided, then we'll be in a better position to make decisions about how it's going to be spent.
Okay. I was just curious how much we're getting and how that aligns itself with other communities, because I think there's a big difference depending on your zip code, how much money you're getting. So I'm wondering if we're getting our fair share. But okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Not seeing any other hands raised currently. I'll announce it one more time. Any members of the public that have a question about the cap bank ordinance, please either raise your hand, or if you're on the phone, you can use the *9 feature. Mayor, I'm not seeing any other hands raised.
So I would like to close the public hearing for ordinance 0-21-8.
We'll now proceed to adoption. May I have a motion that ordinance 021-8 be finally passed and adopted, and that notice of its passage and adoption be published in the May 14th, 2021 issue of the Asbury Park Press by reference to its title only. May I have a motion?
I'll make the motion for 0-21-8 ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank.
Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Roll call. Councilman Bonovich,
Yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell,
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Russo,
Yes.
and Mayor Berger.
Yes.
Okay, I'll now proceed to the budget consent resolutions R21-156 through R21-158. May I have a motion to adopt?
I'll make the motion to adopt R21-156 through R21-158.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Roll call. Councilman Bonovich,
Yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell,
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Russo,
Yes.
and Mayor Berger.
Yes.
Non-consent budget resolution requiring a separate vote. Resolution R21-159, adopting the 2021 Township of Howell municipal budget. May I have a motion to adopt?
May I make a motion to adopt the 2021 municipal budget?
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call. Councilman Bonovich,
Yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell,
No.
Councilwoman Richmond,
No.
Deputy Mayor Russo,
Yes.
and Mayor Berger.
No.
With that said, the budget has not been adopted. Okay, I shall proceed to acceptance of minutes. March 23rd, 2021 for regular and executive session minutes. May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of March 23rd, 2021.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call. Councilman Bonovich,
Yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell,
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Russo,
Yes.
and Mayor Berger.
Yes.
Acceptance of regular and executive session minutes for April 13th, 2021. May I have a motion?
Motion to accept April 13th, 2021 minutes.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call. Councilman Bonovich,
Yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell,
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Russo,
Yes.
and Mayor Berger.
Actually,
Yes.
Okay, acceptance of regular and executive session minutes from April 27th. May I have a motion to accept?
Motion to accept April 27th, 2021 minutes.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, Councilman Bonovich,
Yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell,
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Russo.
I have to abstain. I wasn't there.
Yes, thank you. And Mayor Berger.
Yes.
Thank you.
At this time, I would like to open the reports of the town officials. I just want to say two quick things. I will say that you did a really wonderful job on the budget. There was one thing I didn't agree with, so that's the only reason why and it's the only thing. But you did a wonderful job, I have to say. It's National Police Week, so if we remember all of our police officers who are dear to our hearts, our friends and our family, please make sure you take note. There is the Memorial Day Parade of Heroes. At this point, it is only by car. You can't, at this point, I believe, cannot walk through the parade. And it is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I know we all know people in our families and communities and that suffer with mental health illness. But there's one thing that I hope that we could think about a little further is postpartum depression. That happens very often. So if you know anybody and you see they might have signs of that, please don't shrug that off. That's very, very important. So with that being said, I will open up to Councilman Bonovich.
Really simple. I'm just going to talk about the next week. This Tuesday, I went over to Howell Road, seeing the paving. In April, we did West Farms in Howell Road in May. And I know everyone's complaining about over by the old municipal building in PD. That's going to be probably paved in June. And after hopefully tonight in the consent agenda, we're going to pave Leans Mills. So the paving's coming post-pandemic. You know, we got a little slowed down, but the paving's coming. So again.
Deputy Mayor Russo.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be very brief. You touched upon a National Police Week. We honor, remember our fallen police officers and our current police officers serving in Howell and around the United States. I would like to propose we do in-person meetings. If the council would agree, I think it's time. I think we've, I think they can be done safely. And I think we should look into that. Also, I'm doing my little pizza tour around town. Met a lot of business owners, a lot of employees, and I learned a lot about the state of our local economy. I could tell you it looks pretty good. A lot of our local businesses are hiring, and that's the number one thing. When I ask them, I said, what's going on? How are things? They say, I need workers. So if you're looking for a job, a lot of our businesses are hiring right now, which led me to ask our manager and our township attorney to look into a business recovery task force recommendation, which is a job fair. It's my understanding that we can't do it on school property, but perhaps the farmer's market would be a good location, maybe inside town hall or outside, because I tell you there is a labor shortage in town, and a lot of our businesses would welcome a job fair. They were very excited about it, so we can look into that if the council would agree to that, to add a job fair, maybe if not this month, next month, while our young residents are getting out of school, like home from college, be a good time to do it. I think town hall would be a good spot, especially at one of our very successful farmers markets. That's all I
Thank
have.
you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilwoman O'Donnell.
There was some talk with the Chamber of Commerce about doing a job fair. I don't know if they're still planning one or not. Of course, if the unemployment payments were a little different, I think businesses could actually find people to work for them. So I did want to ask administration for the next meeting, can we find out where we are on the solar proposals? One of them being maybe the park and ride. I know that there was some concern about doing something for the township. So maybe the next meeting we can get an update. I don't expect anything today because I didn't prepare, I didn't ask anybody. Also, how are we doing on the RFPs for the efficiency study? Is there a time limit or a date that all of these RFPs will be in? Mr. Geegan?
Councilwoman, that is on tonight's agenda for your approval, for that to be sent out. It's got to be advertised for a period of time. And once we get all the responses, they'll be weighed, and the successful bidder or the professionals will make a recommendation to the governing body. That's probably about a month out from this point.
About a month, okay.
Assuming it gets approved tonight and with us.
Okay. Also, I wanted to thank Councilwoman Richmond for bringing the warehouse issue to the forefront. I know sometimes being on the planning board, bringing things to the council doesn't always give you a positive outcome, but I want to thank you for doing that. That's something that we really need to get underway so that we have warehousing in the proper zones in the future. Also, I would like us to look at, and I say us, I mean administration. I realize that we are the tax collector for everyone, and I know it's done statutorily in New Jersey. Is there a possibility of us ever escaping being the tax collector so that the school actually collects their own taxes? I know it's a statute, but is there any light at the end of that tunnel?
Councilwoman, as you identified, it's a statute, so
I realize.
I guess you would have to start with your state legislators to try and change that.
So I'm hoping that maybe as a council, we might look at this seriously and start that, that letter writing or a meeting or whatever. Maybe we can get other towns interested in the same thought process. So going on, today I saw the Adelphia Fire Company. They did a safety video on our channel 77, and it was really geared to be friendly to children. However, it was very interesting to see all of this safety clothing and things that, the things that the firemen are wearing to protect themselves. I took really, I have to say that I feel a little connected to Adelphia. My brother was the chief there. And I realized that it was geared for children, but I think that as the adults watch this, you'll have a new appreciation for the supplies that firemen need to keep them safe. And bear with me, get the tax collector. Oh, also, the zoning board had done their year-end report, and it was emailed to every council person. I know that Councilwoman Richmond saw it. I made sure she saw the copy. Again, this is the third time I'm going to ask council, please read this report. There's so many things in there in their year-end report that if we could address as a council, we could make easier for the zoning board, clearer for the definitions that we want done as a council. And I think that we could help steer them in a better way. If there's an issue with the year-end report, I'm sure we can get the chairman to come in and spend 10 minutes with us to explain things. It's really very, very important. So if we could have a discussion at the next meeting, I would appreciate it. This is for the well-being of the whole town. And I made a note and I can't even read it. Oh, the other thing too is that we talked, the mental health issue was brought up. Also, it's my understanding that this is Brain Cancer Month. So along with Jake Honig, I'd like everybody to take a moment to remember our former council person, Robert Walsh, who we lost a couple of years ago. So as brain cancer may not affect every family, certainly the families that it does affect, it's devastating. And I think this town takes it very seriously. I know the police are very active with Jake Honig, but I think it's something that sometimes unless something doesn't affect your family, I don't think that we give it the true thought that it might have, or we should give it. So for a brief moment along the way, if you could think of those people that have suffered in their families, it would be nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Richmond.
Thank you, Mayor. To add to piggyback onto Councilwoman O'Donnell's, I'd like to ask that we adopt a resolution proclaiming May 2021 Brain Tumor Awareness Month. If we can do that, Clerk, for maybe the next meeting, or.
Sure can.
Thank you. Also, I'd be remiss if we didn't mention that last week was National Day of Prayer. It was very unfortunate that we were not able to pull something together, obviously with COVID and all that stuff. But I'd like to make mention of that. Usually a lot of the pastors in the area get together, religious leaders, and we do something at Town Hall. But unfortunately, we weren't able to do that. I know Councilwoman O'Donnell usually spearheads that. So hopefully we can get back to doing something, but I think it's important to mention. Brian, I would like to just mention the permit process, and I'm not sure if Mr. Howard is here. I've spoken to a few businesses, and from what I understand, and Mr. Howard, we've discussed this as well. It seems to be that the permit process is a real big pain in the neck. As you're aware, I directed another business to you, and I understand that we have a technology, the special data logic, I think that's what it's called, that we're not using, and I'm not sure if it's because of lack of training or lack of knowledge. Can we look at that and find out what the biggest problem with our businesses? We obviously don't want to have businesses have difficulties coming here. We don't want that reputation, obviously, especially now. We want businesses coming here. But a couple of businesses say that the process is just is so difficult, and I don't understand why we're not more business friendly here. And I know you're new here at this level, Matt. So if we could maybe talk to some people, and I don't know, Council, how you feel about this. If you've spoken to businesses and they've given you some feedback on opening up a new business here, but two businesses, one specifically said it was difficult and was kind of not embarrassed, but was kind of afraid to even mention it because of future business that they have to do with the township. They're afraid it would hurt them. And I assured her that that's not the case. But I think it's something we have to look into, why it's so difficult to do that, and a permit process. Mr. Howard, if you could look into that for us.
I agree with you, Councilwoman. I've received a lot of complaints from people that are saying that it's taken a long time to get to get their paperwork done. I don't know why. And I don't know if the people are expecting it to be a turnaround time of 24 or 48 hours, which is not reasonable either. So I don't know what each person's expectation is. I mean, I'm sure that they're working as hard as they can in the department, but.
Oh, I agree. And actually, speaking to Mr. Howard, I think we kind of nailed a few things down. He went and spoke to the business owner, but a lot of the business owners don't want to speak out and complain because they just want their, and they want to get, they want to get their doors open. So if you could somehow with the manager kind of try to brainstorm and find out what they're talking about, if we can do something better, use this technology that we have, it would probably be really good for our businesses.
Mayor, may I?
Sure.
Councilwoman Richmond, what equipment do we have that we're not using?
From what I understand, this, and Mr. Howard, please correct me if I'm wrong, it's called Special Data Logic. Is that what it's called?
So it's spatial data logic. We do use
so
that.
close.
We're one of the heaviest users, the program has told us, in the state. And there are features that we don't use yet. Some of it is more advanced, some of it doesn't apply in Howell Township. We are expanding as much as we can. Earlier last year during the pandemic, I had opened up, for example, zoning land use permits to be able to be submitted online. It's been a great success. Turnaround time is a day or two, as opposed to even more than that. Just recently, the governor signed a bill that mandates that the building department be fully online and digital for submittals. So we have to implement that within a year. Spatial Data Logic has that capability already. So we're going to start working almost immediately on ramping up our staff, changing all the internal policies, because there's a lot of them. It's a big change as to how we do things now, with everything having a paper trail. A lot of people have to get used to a new process, but we're starting that process. We actually have a webinar on it tomorrow, and it's going to take the better part of a year to roll out. But by this time next year, we'll be fully online for the building department, which will be a big step forward. Submittals coming back online will save a lot of time.
And this will, I mean, I keep talking about businesses, but obviously residents and residential. I know back in the day, you guys did something, you guys fixed the whole pool permit thing. So I don't want to leave out the residents. I'm sure the residents are just as frustrated. So if we can look at that, that'd be great.
Sure.
Thank you. I appreciate
Thank
that.
you, Mr. Howard. That's a good report. I like hearing that. So
Thank you.
hopefully in a year, we'll be moving faster.
Yeah, and I like to ensure the residents and the businesses that, Matt Howard, you're always looking to be innovative and forward thinking. So I appreciate that. I know it takes a lot of work and I've been seeing a lot of the stuff that you've been putting forth and it's good work. So thank you because we need to be open-minded.
Thank you.
My last thing is our residents would love to hear that we're opening up our camps, our summer camps for our families and our kids. I'm sure parents are looking forward to getting their children out of their house. So Manager Geegan and Steve Fetcher, thank you so much for pushing for that and working with the Board of Ed to get those buildings used. I know there's a lot of restriction guidelines. I saw a few of them and I had to stop reading, but I hope it makes, for a good summer for these kids. They deserve it. They need it. The parents need it. Thank you for getting that off the ground. And I know that the registration link and everything is up and running. Is that correct, Manager?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Okay.
Sure.
So, and I think there's a restriction on the number of people we're allowed. 250, I think was the number.
Yes.
Yeah. So get your applications in there and get your kids ready for summer camp at Howell because we all need a little bit of a break. So thank you, Mayor. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Mr. Geegan, would you like to?
Yes,
Take the
Mayor, I'd
floor.
like a couple quick things so we can move along. We've already addressed
Thank you.
our next meeting. We are planning on having live and in person back here at Town Hall. I already have IT working on that to make sure our systems are up to speed with that. As Councilwoman Richmond just mentioned, the summer rec programs are a go. They just went live for registration yesterday. There was a glitch in the registration program initially, but that's been corrected. And then also, I believe it was put out late today, we are coming up with a plan to reopen our senior center. Again, it's going to be a phased in approach, but we're trying to return things to normal as quickly as possible. That's all I have for now, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Clark?
Your Mayor, nothing other than what we discussed in exec.
Thank you. So we have a proclamation for Mental Health Awareness Month. Ms. Minnock, if you would please read it.
Sure. Whereas, according to the National Alliance on Mental Health, 1 in 5 adults experiences mental illness and 1 in 6 youth ages 6 to 17 experiences a mental health disorder each year in the US. And whereas 50% of all lifetime mental illness begins by age 14 and 75% begins by age 24. And whereas suicide is the second leading cause of death of youths ages 15 to 24 and the 10th leading cause of death for all Americans. And whereas over 48 million people annually in the US experience an anxiety disorder, and whereas mental health conditions are the leading cause of disability across the US, and whereas even though most people can successfully be treated for mental health conditions, less than half of the adults in the US who need services and treatment get the help they need. And whereas the Howell Alliance for Substance Abuse Prevention and Mental Health Awareness remains committed to providing mental health education, public awareness, information on mental health support resources, quarterly mental health first aid trainings, and stigma reduction initiatives in Howell so that all of our community members feel supported and able to seek assistance for mental health conditions. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Mayor Teresa Berger and on behalf of the governing body do hereby proclaim May 2021 as Mental Health Awareness Month in Howell Township and commend its observance to all citizens.
Thank you very much. At this time, I would like to open up for hearing of the citizens for town business and agenda resolutions only.
Okay, any members of the public that wish to address the governing body, please raise your hand. If you're on the phone, you can use the *9 feature. First up, I have Adam. I'm moving into the room.
Good evening. Adam Fiala of Sills, Cummins and Gross. We represent Monmouth Commerce Center, LLC, the contract purchaser of Block 5, Lots 2 and 3. And the owner of the property is represented by Matt Fioravanti of Giordano, who also represents other property owners within the SED zone. My comments relate
Sarah, can I
to,
interrupt you for a moment, please? If this is about the ordinance, we are having a separate hearing on that.
even though this is just agenda resolutions, there was a resolution supporting that ordinance, or should we wait until the ordinance itself?
Wait until the ordinance itself. There'll be a separate hearing for that prior to that resolution.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
Okay, Mayor, I'm moving to the next person. I have Steve moving back into the room. Steve, if you could unmute and state your name and address once again, please, for the record.
Yes. Good evening, Steve Morlino, Peachstone Road, Howell. Just want to make a comment in regard to Deputy Mayor Russo's suggestion that you go back to live meetings. I'm all for live meetings, but I'm going to ask the council that they consider a hybrid meeting platform going forward. I think that Zoom and WebEx and all of these platforms have worked tremendously during this COVID period. And I'd like to see the public be able to actually speak from their living room, their dining room, their kitchen table, and address the council. They may not be able to get to town hall to attend the meeting, but you can certainly have a live in-person meeting. You can have the public attend, but you can also have a hybrid where the people at home can also visually see what's going on and raise their hand and ask a question just like you're doing here. Perhaps a big screen behind the council so you could see it, people, or in front of the council, or on desktops, laptops in front of them. I think it would go a long way to have more public participation. I mean, we see this evening 3 people spoke on the budget. It would be nice if more people were able to speak on these things and had a platform to speak. And if we knew how to use this technology a little better. Again, there are ways to publicize this better so people know how to log on. I got to tell you, I use WebEx and Zoom and Canvas and various other platforms all day long as part of my job. This is one of the most difficult sessions to log on to. Okay, I can tell you, it appears to be hidden. You should have a direct link on the home page. Click here to enter a virtual meeting and make it very simplistic for the public who may not use this kind of technology all day long. So I just ask you to consider virtual hybrid type meetings so that the public can participate from home and give that some consideration. It's not hard to do. Technology is available, it's very evident. And I think you would get some more public participation and some more support for what you do. A lot of people have no idea what you really do all day. So please consider that. Thank you.
I want to say our manager did talk about that. So he is already looking into that. He's ahead of you on that one. So thank you.
Okay, next I have Patricia. I am moving into the room. Patricia, if you could turn on your camera, state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Patricia Trotta, 190 Bennett Road. And I don't know if this is the time to ask or not, but I had gotten a letter about a ordinance 0-21-10. And is that the one that you're saying there's going to be a separate meeting for?
Yes, no, not a separate meeting, a separate hearing later on tonight.
Oh, later tonight. So I am at the right place.
Yes, just one
Okay.
time.
So I just have to wait for you to get to that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, again, I'll announce any members of the public that wish to address the council. While I'm moving Tina Smilik in. This is for general town business. If you wish to comment on the ordinance, that hearing will be later this evening.
Tina Smilik, 33 Charles Street. I want to start by saying we all discussed as residents everything about the budget. Why wasn't there a discussion of council about the budget to try to understand your point so we can get this passed tonight? I mean, is there a reason? I mean, why wasn't this discussed over the last 2 weeks from last time? It seems like you can't get your act together here, and I'm really, it's really aggravating. Stop playing this game and just talk to each other. You guys need to work together. You guys should be sitting there. You should be talking to each other, and you should be making this work. And if you're going to keep doing this, you're only hurting us, the residents. So please, if you have a problem, talk to the manager. I ask that you put the budget back up and you guys discuss it discuss it between yourselves. If you have a problem, say what it is. See if you can come to an agreement and pass it. That's all I want to say. Stop with all of these games. All right? You're here to work for us, the residents. Nobody had a problem. You guys have a problem? You should have figured it out before tonight. Unless somebody else brought a problem up tonight that you don't agree with, and then maybe you can talk about it. But just sitting here giving us no reason and not passing a budget is not right. All right. Going on to that, job fair is great. Can we do it at Southern School? Spatial data logic. We've had that since 2011, 2012. We've been using that in Howell Township. I know because it was brought in back when Herman was brought in or whoever it was, because we had a whole talk about it back then. So you know what? Do a little homework. You can see where that's at. Make payments to the schools, make payments to the town. You know what? We're doing an efficiency study, but then you want to make it less efficient for us to pay our taxes. How about we just explain our taxes a little better and do a little more homework on it and put out ads and educate the public on how the budget is done. And Bob Walsh passed away last year, not a couple years ago. All right, so that's all on what he did. So now as far as resolutions, resolutions for Dostie and Associates, R21-163. We upped it 20,000 on January 26th. Now we're upping it 25,000. Is this an open and fair process that goes through to appoint these contracts?
They're appointed every year by council at reorganization. So
But through an open and fair bid process.
they submit their RFPs every year. You see them, you know what the process is. They're appointed at reorganization.
I know, but is that considered under the fair and open
Yes.
process? It is.
It's for professional services.
Because there is a lot, I have a problem with elect reports and who they're donating to. And I feel that maybe right now, some people should take a step back and look at this, because I don't think elect reports should really, you know, where they're donating to and where they have a contract with, that shouldn't be mixing. And I don't care if you're Republican, if you're Democrat, I'm not going to go in who's doing what, but I'm just saying, as far as elect reports go, can we look at them and can we not do contracts with people that are giving money to either party? So R21-164 efficiency study. Why do we need an efficiency study? And are we using a state contract for this? What are we going to get from this?
This is authorizing an RFP so we can solicit proposals from various companies to see what kind of work they can do and what the cost would be.
I mean, do you want to bring people in to look at the departments because we can't handle it ourselves? Or, I mean, is there a problem that we need this? I mean, what's the problem? What's the reason behind asking for this?
The governing body has directed me to put out for an RFP for an efficiency study. They apparently would like an outside view.
I'm sorry, 1 minute left. I'm sorry.
Okay. I've seen efficiency studies done before in multiple municipalities and they never work. But whatever you say, you know, an RFP, I'd like to know from council why exactly you want this, because it just makes no sense to me. I think you have a well-paid manager, a well-paid attorney here, and I think that's what you're paying them to take care of all the efficiency of what's going on in town. So I don't see why we need to spend extra money. The master plan subcommittee is noticed. Are those minutes going to be released or put on TV, those meetings that they're on Zoom?
We can put them on TV if you like.
Yes, please. If you could do that, I would appreciate it.
Sure.
Time is up.
Okay, last thing I want to say, I'm done. Please take another vote on tonight's budget and discuss what your problems are in public so we all know, and let's get this passed if we can, besides keep putting it off. If you have a problem, discuss it. Maybe we're missing something that you're seeing, or discuss it with your professionals that we pay so much for in taxes.
Time is up.
Have a good night, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next I have Barbara. She keeps raising her hand and putting it down. Hold on. Okay, moving Barbara into the room.
Hello, guys? Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Barbara Dixell, 62A Piazza Vittoria, Freehold, New Jersey. I have 2 things to talk about. Your job fair. I would very strongly suggest that it's a wonderful idea to have a job fair. I would suggest that you do it at the high school or a school and do it like you do a college registration.
Hey,
Well,
Barbara. Barbara, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're unable to do it at the school.
Okay, fine, then do it at town hall and have the businesses around the room and whatever, and do it like you do a college registration. You go from table to table to table to go put out an application and talk to people like in school, like until you get closed out of a class. You know, that's, you just keep walking around and talk to people. The second thing I want to talk to you about is the school budget. At least 15 years ago, the Howell Township Board of Education put their budgets on a referendum that goes on the November election. You don't have a chance. You can't talk about it. You can't fight it. Whatever they do, we're done. What we need to do is undo that, because they get away with, I'm sure they get away with all kinds of stuff. It was put on a referendum at least 15 years ago. It was voted in. It was on the November election. We're done. You can never, ever, ever again question the Howell Township Board of Education, and it's wrong. They need to be brought to task. We need to know what the heck they're doing and why they're doing it, and why we're spending the money. I mean, my Board of Education taxes are over $2,000 a year. It's insane. $2,700 a year. So they need to be brought in. They need to be brought into task, and you people need to undo what was done at least 15 years ago with a referendum on a November election where we're all screwed. We have nothing to do. We can't do anything. They get away with it. But thank you. And the job fair is a great idea. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
I do want to say one thing about the job fair. Jeff Bassett and Sue Dominguez from the task force brought that up, and I just want to thank them for that.
Or just do something about the Board of Education budget, so maybe we can get some fairness.
People move out.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
Mr. Geegan, is there anybody to be called in?
Excuse me a second, Mayor, while I move Barbara out. I'll make the announcement again. Any members of the public that wish to address the governing body, please use the raise your hand feature or *9 if you're on phone. I have Ed that are moving into the room currently. Okay, Ed, please state your name and address, turn on your camera and unmute your mic, and you can address the governing body.
Am I on, sir?
We can hear you. Please turn your camera on as well.
I'm working on it.
Okay.
It's a little on the side. Well, unfortunately, I don't see my camera working tonight.
Okay, please state your name and address for the record.
Ed Matthews, 106 Tinton Falls Road, Farmingdale, New Jersey. And I would just like to ask that maybe perchance you as a group or as representatives of the community, that you can put a little pressure on the state as far as opening up cottage food industries. Due to the fact that we are one of the only states in the nation, if not the only state, that does not allow baked goods to be sold out of a private domicile. There's a lot of people who are willing to do this. I myself am one of them as an out of work baker. And I would like to start producing breads for the community. It would also be a boon to your farmers market, as there is no baked goods up there that I recall. And the bill has been pushed through, but it hasn't passed yet. And maybe if we get some government interest saying that, yes, our communities want this, besides the 3 people in the Home Bakers Guild or Union that are representing all the bakers in the state, maybe we can get something done.
Okay, thank you
Thank
for
you
your
for your
comment.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Moving Ed out of the room. Again, I'll make a final announcement. Any members of the public that wish to address the governing body, please either raise your hand, or if you're on the phone, you can use the *9 feature. Mayor, I'm not seeing anybody else that wishes to address the governing body at this time.
So then at this point, I'd like to close this portion.
Not yet. I have to read the email
Oh, I'm
public comment.
I'm
Thank
so
you.
sorry.
That's okay. I almost forgot. We do have an email that was sent for the last meeting, but it was sent after the time limit from Sally Foti or Fati. I apologize for the pronunciation. Ms. Foti asked the mayor about being approved by the local finance board or governor's office for the OHI's vaccination clinics. She doesn't want future issues for the town, but she's happy the mayor can help out to vaccinate the people. Ms. Osborne commented that budgeting should be done for the Environmental Commission to include an environmental expert regarding the planning applications. Also commented in regards to last meeting's public attacks. They should not have been tolerated. Ms. Osborne also has comment for the SED ordinance 2110, which will be addressed during public hearing later. Ms. Jessica Valentino commented on the mayor's salary and applauds mayor for her hard work and success in the healthcare field and as mayor. Mr. John Hughes also was questioning voting for Councilwoman O'Donnell regarding resolution 21-163. And the rest is for later for public hearing on the ordinance. That's all I have.
At this point, I have a question. I'm not quite sure if I should ask it now, Brian, or if I should wait.
Sure. Go ahead.
I heard what Tina said, and I mean, the reason that I voted, I mean, I would reconsider a discussion if that's allowable, since I would reconsider my vote.
Okay, so the proper procedure for that, Mayor, we would need a motion and a second, and then a majority vote to reconsider the budget question, to adopt the budget, and then have a second vote, and each councilperson and yourself can vote as you wish at that point. So if somebody wants to make a motion to reconsider.
I'll make the motion to reconsider.
I'll just jump in. Councilman Ivanovich, you cannot make the motion.
Okay,
Motion
I
has to be
was a
made
yes. Okay,
Somebody who voted no on the budget.
can the mayor step down?
Can I step down?
Yeah, I think that, yeah, the mayor could- yeah. you
Yeah.
would-
I could
yeah,
step down to make a motion, yeah?
Yes.
So I would like to I'm stepping down to deputy mayor. I would like to make a motion to reconsider the budget vote.
I'll
Can I
second
have-
it.
Okay,
I'll proceed with roll call. Councilman Bonovich,
Yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell,
No,
Councilwoman Richmond,
you're on mute.
Sorry, no.
Deputy Mayor Russo,
Yes.
and Mayor Berger.
Yes. So I want to discuss why I voted no, and it was for the reason of the salary. I agree with the citizens. I think that it needs to be done in a more, in a logical way, in a more reasonable way. So, I mean, I don't know. I know that what are you going to say?
I can clarify, Mayor, just to go over this. This is just putting money in the budget to allow for that salary. it does not grant the governing body any salary raise. That has to be done separately by a salary ordinance. And then, you always have the right to either refuse or take lesser salary than what is offered.
Yeah, Mayor, I also have the same concerns, and to my understanding, this budget does not release any funds to council stipends. It just allows, I guess, the discussion. You would need an ordinance to
Okay.
actually release the funds.
Correct.
That is correct.
That's why I vote. That's why I supported this budget. We can have the conversation about a raise at a later date, and you have to. This budget does not release any funds to council
Okay.
stipends.
And Mayor, if I may, we can change the amounts, could just add 1,000. We can leave it alone. It's up to us.
Okay.
Right, so
So-
just so you all know too, the current salary ordinance for council is capped at what you're currently being paid. It's capped at $7,500, so it would have to be amended to account for any sort of raise beyond that.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. So then, what is the next step?
Now, if somebody wants to make a motion, or if there's further discussion, that would proceed. Otherwise, somebody could make a motion to pass that resolution, number R-21-159, and then proceed if there's a second with a vote.
I'll resubmit my motion to approve the 2021 township budget.
I'll second.
Okay, I'll proceed with roll call. Councilman Bonovich.
Yes.
Okay. Councilwoman O'Donnell.
No.
Councilwoman Richmond.
No.
Deputy Mayor Russo.
Yes.
And Mayor Berger.
Yes, thank you for the clarification. And I was thinking it through. I didn't want to stop the budget from moving forward if there was a way not to do that. So, thank you.
The budget is passed.
Okay. We are now on to the consent agenda, item number 10.
Yes, consent agenda resolutions R21-160, pulling R21-163, then proceeding through R21-175. So it's going to be resolutions 160 to 162 and 164 through 175. May I have a motion to adopt?
I will make a motion to adopt those resolutions.
A second.
Thank you. Roll call, Councilman Bonovich,
Yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell,
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Russo,
Yes.
and Mayor Berger.
Yes, ma'am.
There are no non-consent resolutions at this point. Introduction of ordinance. May I have a motion to introduce ordinance 02112 on first reading by title and to order the same to be published in the May 14th, 2021 issue of the Asbury Park Press, together with notice of its introduction and passage on the first reading by title, and that it will be further considered for final passage after public hearing at a meeting of the Township Council to be held on May 25th, 2021 at 7 p.m. prevailing time in the Municipal Building, 4567 Route 9 North, Howell, New Jersey, 07731. May I have a motion to introduce?
I'll make a motion to introduce.
Second?
Thank you. Roll call, Councilman Bonovich,
Yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell,
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Russo,
Yes.
and Mayor Berger.
Yes, ma'am.
Ordinance 2112, an ordinance of the Township of Howell amending Chapter 188-84.2 entitled Moderate and Low Income Housing Zone 12, ML 12 of the revised general ordinance of the Township of Howell. Okay, we have public hearing. I'm sorry.
So I would like to open this portion for a public hearing for ordinance 0-21-11.
Amending Article 26
Amending-
entitled.
I'm sorry. Do you want me to read it?
That's, you can.
Or you want to do it?
It's
Amending
okay.
Article 26 entitled Sewer Connections and Sewer Users, Chapter 139-78, entitled Sewer User Charges of Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Howell.
This ordinance was introduced and passed on first reading on April 27, 2021, and published according to law, is now being taken up for further consideration and public hearing. Affidavit of public hearing of this ordinance in the Asbury Park Press issue of April 30th, 2021 is submitted, and noted that a copy of the ordinance has posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and that copies were available to the general public upon request. It's open to public hearing for this ordinance only.
Any members of the public that wish to ask about this ordinance 0-21-11, which is amending our sewer connection and user fees, please raise your hand. If you're on the phone, you can use the *9 feature. Mayor, I'm moving Tina Smilek into the room.
Thank you.
Tina Smilek, 33 Charles Street. I just want to know how does this affect the people in Freewood Acres?
Once they connect and they start paying their fees.
I mean, are you raising their connection fee? How many?
The connection fees are waived for a period for them.
Okay, so they're still waived. This is not going to affect anybody in Freewood Acres. That makes it more expensive for them to hook up if they haven't already.
Correct. That's
Okay,
correct.
that's all I wanted to make sure. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other members of the public wish to address the governing body? Sorry, Mayor, doing a few things.
Okay.
Mayor, I'm not seeing any other hands raised at this point. for this
Okay,
one.
so then I will close the public hearing for ordinance 0-21-11.
Thank you. May I have a motion that ordinance 02111 be finally passed and adopted, and that notice of its passage and adoption will be published in the May 14th, 21 issue of the Asbury Park Press by reference to its title only. Motion, please.
I'll make the motion for ordinance 0-21-11, amending Article 26 entitled Sewer Connections and Sewer Users, Chapter 139-78 entitled Sewer User Charges of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Howell.
Thank you. A second. A second.
A second.
Thank you. Roll call. Councilman Bonovich.
Yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell. Councilwoman O'Donnell. You're muted.
My vote is no.
Councilwoman Richmond.
No.
Deputy Mayor Russo.
Yes.
Mayor Berger.
Yes.
Ordinance has been adopted. Okay.
Mayor, if I can interject for a moment before we proceed to the next ordinance, as it's expected to be quite lengthy.
Yes.
Would you like to take a 5-minute recess?
That would be wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
If we could just have a motion in a second and a quick roll
So
call.
moved.
I'll
I'm
make a motion.
I didn't know. Yeah. Clark, is that okay? We just jumped in, just made a motion.
Yeah, that's it. It's fine.
I'll make the
Okay.
motion.
So we'll be taking a 5-minute recess.
Yes.
Yes.
sorry.
All
Thank
in
you.
favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mayor, if we could just give it a moment. Joe Clark is going to make an announcement prior to us starting this.
Sure.
And we're awaiting Jen Beams to return as well. So as soon as she comes back, I'll move her into the room. Joe, you're.
Okay, so very quickly, I mean, this is going to be the hearing on ordinance 0-21-10. I know that in addition to our citizens, we have a number of attorneys on the line, some of whom who have brought professionals with them. We're going to do our best to accommodate everybody. You know, this isn't like a zoning board or a planning board hearing where there's a quasi judicial aspect to it. You know, we will allow as much time as we possibly can, but it's certainly going to be much shorter than typical. You know, as a starting point, I would suggest that if an attorney does not have a planner and does not have another expert with them, that they confine their remarks to 5 minutes, like we ask our residents to. There should be plenty of time to get your point across. If you have an expert with you, whether a planner or a traffic engineer or what have you, let us know and we will do our best. You know, we'll make motions to extend the amount of time, but it's certainly not going to be an unfettered amount of time for the hearing tonight.
Sue, do you want to start?
Yes, please. Ordinance 02110, amending chapter 188-79, section B, entitled Special Economic Development, permitted uses of the revised ordinances of the Township of Howell. Ordinance number 02110, introduced and passed on the first reading on April the 13th, 2021, and published according to law, is now being taken up for further consideration and public hearing. Affidavit of publication of this ordinance in the Asbury Park Press issue of April 16, 2021 is submitted, and it is noted that a copy of the ordinance has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building and that copies were available to the general public upon request.
So I'm just going to reiterate again for Mr. Clark. Before I open to the public hearing, I want you to know that we are going to be consistent with our ordinance relating to public comments. So we're limiting the speakers to 5 minutes and we're limiting the whole hearing to an hour. So please, everyone, make your comments and be cognizant of the other people who are trying to make their comments as well. We're going to take the 5-minute rule extremely seriously at this portion of the meeting.
That's right. Thank you, Mayor. And you know,
Yes.
if we should happen to need to extend it, we'll visit that question. But for right now, I think the expectation is we'll try and do this just as we do with all of our other hearings on ordinances.
Perfect. So at this time, I would like to open the public hearing for ordinance 0-21-10.
Mayor, I do have 2 emails regarding said ordinance. Ms. Osborne addressed the many warehouse applications submitted, and hopefully the council will approve said ordinance. And she spoke of the town's existing infrastructure being subjected to the warehouse development. Also received an email from Dawn Van Brunt, questioned the status of the Monmouth Commerce Center in regards to said ordinance. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Gee.
and continuing with public comment, I'll announce any members of the audience that wish to address the governing body, please use the raise your hand feature. If you're on the phone, you can use the *9 feature. We have a number of hands raised, so I'll get to it. First is Joseph Bazaralian. I apologize if I damaged your name.
Basralian.
Sir.
You're on mute, sir.
Can you hear me now? I think I just unmuted it.
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Joseph Bazralian of the firm of Winnie Banta Bazralian & Khan in Hackensack, and we represent 331 Fairfield Road LLC, which purchased the property at 333 Fairfield Road on April 23rd, 2021. The property is designated as Block 117, Lot 129.02 in the Special Economic Development Zone of Howell. I had also sent a letter on April 30th, 2021 to the borough clerk, and I didn't hear it read into the record, as were the emails, and it should have been part of the record on this application. The purpose of the letter was to point out that we took exception to the notice that was provided with respect to this ordinance. The notice provided the property owner, the original property owner, which then forwarded to us the day after it was received, does not comport with the requirements of NJSA 4055D 62.1. The language in the notice was as follows. the location of the proposed change is within 200 feet of property owned by you. The notice should have properly stated that this was an affected property wherein warehouse and distribution uses would be thereafter prohibited within the zone. And that language should have been contained in the notice to the property owners in the SED, and not the general language that your property is within 200 feet of the area to be rezoned. And I respectfully note that the notice is defective and the hearing shouldn't go forward without a renoticing.
Okay, is that all for your comments, sir?
No, it's not. That's not the end of my comments, since no one seems to react to the defective notice and whether or not in fact it's defective, and your counsel should so advise you. With respect to the ordinance itself, and I will limit myself as you've indicated, the next item on the agenda is a resolution of the Township Council setting forth the reasons in support of the adoption of ordinance number 02110. And I'm curious why that resolution at least wasn't read before the open discussion on the ordinance itself. Since if you adopt the ordinance and then justify your reasons, it really should come before the fact and not after the fact. I'm curious as to the reasons and the rationale for the adoption of the ordinance. I think I understand it, but still in all, I would like to know more. One of the things the proposed ordinance does is renders all existing buildings non-conforming with respect to warehouse and distribution, so that in effect in the future all of these buildings will be non-conforming. Anything any owner wants to do with respect to site plan, anything that requires site plan approval, then now puts them to the zoning board of adjustment rather than the planning board, because the use isn't permitted. And while there are other uses within the zone, these are strictly prohibited. There's been a lot of talk on the state level through adopting legislation to prevent, the massive spread without substantial review of what is proposed with respect to future large mega warehouse distribution centers. Unfortunately, it affects all the uses within the SCD, and in effect, again,
1 minute left.
Doesn't address the real issues, and it seems to me that it really is something that that should be looked at a little bit differently. Our client owns 3 buildings aggregating 337,000 square feet, in which warehouse distribution for small users available for small businesses. This is not a mega structure. It is not one of the sprawling 3 or 4 or 500,000 square foot warehouse distribution buildings with 2 or 3 or 400 bays on large tracts of land. This is much different. It's a small warehouse distribution operation. And what you've effectively done by seeking to adopt this ordinance is to throw out the baby with the bathwater, because you've affected everybody that's been in existence for a long time. Most of these owners have made a substantial investment in their property, and you've affected it because even refinancing is vastly affected, because many lending documents provide for the bank to have an option to call the loan when the use is deemed discontinued, or in this case deemed non-conforming. Instead,
I'm sorry, 5 minutes have ended.
that was the fastest 5 minutes I've ever been through. May I be permitted another 60 seconds to just finish up, if I could? It would seem more logical to table this ordinance.
If I could interrupt, we do have a number of other people that wish to speak. If you want to go to the back of the line, you might be able to, we'll see if we can fit it in, but in order to give everyone an attempt to speak, we need to move on. That's why we emphasize the strict 5-minute rule.
Well, you've also limited the public hearing to 1 hour, and presumably you would vote within it. And if everyone hasn't had an opportunity to speak, if only 5 minutes, then you should really continue the hearing on this ordinance rather than stopping it and deciding whether you vote or not.
So I'll answer that.
I will go to the back of the line if that's necessary.
if we come to the end of an hour, and there's still a number of people who haven't had a chance to speak, then council will revisit the issue of extending the hearing out, but we're hoping to get everybody's comments in within the hour.
Well, then I would like to go back on the line, if you will, when other speakers have had an opportunity, so I can just finish up my position.
Once I move you back, just raise your hand again and we'll see if we can get to you. There, moving on, the next person is Mr. Ron Gazarovski, moving him into the room currently.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening on behalf of my client. We are, in fact, I represent an entity known as Tavola Leasing, who in fact owns property that's affected by this. I understand that there are a number of individuals who wish to speak, and I will be brief. First, with regard to item 25, which is reflected in the resolution, I would submit to you respectfully that what you're really seeking to do here is to create basically a moratorium. This really is not an ordinance which is in effect for forever, but in paragraph 25 of the resolution, you're speaking in terms of a moratorium. Moratoriums in the passing of an ordinance are not in fact permitted, and I would refer you to section 40:55D-91 of the municipal land use ordinance. Secondly, I think the ordinance itself is basically self-defeating. What you're talking in terms of, particularly with regard to resolution number 23, you're speaking in terms of, and I'll refer you to the language of the resolution in paragraph 23, which states removal of warehousing and distribution as a permitted use in the SED zone does not constitute an impermissible ban. Property owners will still be able to apply for variances for the use. So you're saying that it is not a permissible ban, but if in fact someone owns property and comes before a zoning board, the obvious response is going to be that what chance do you have of securing a variance when in fact within perhaps a month of application, you're passing an ordinance which is banning the use. Secondly, with regard to item number 16, we're speaking in terms of being compliant with compliance with the master plan and or the reexamination plan. First of all, you have a response from the planning board saying that the proposed ordinance is in fact inconsistent. In order to bolster your argument, you're referring to the reexamination plan. Well, the purpose here is not to seek terms of compliance with the reexamination plan, which is relevant with regard to consideration of this ordinance. I'm going to echo many of the comments of Mr. Bazralian, and I'm sure that his comment and perhaps my limited comments will be echoed by a number of other attorneys who are appearing on behalf of other persons questioning this ordinance. I would respectfully submit to you that this simply is it's a rush to judgment, so to say, with the attempt to pass this ordinance by simply eliminating it as a use in various locations throughout the municipality. That, I think, ties in with Mr. Bazralian's comments. I'm sure our comments will be echoed by many of our other colleagues who represent property owners improperly affected by this ordinance. I said I would be short. Those are my objections, and there are many more, of course. And rather than have this matter proceed to litigation, I think the council should take a step back and reevaluate the propriety of this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mayor, I'm moving in the next person. We have Adam Bayella, I believe it is, moving into the room currently. While we're doing that, I'll make the announcement again, and members of the public that wish to address the governing body on this ordinance, please use the raise your hand feature or *9 if you're on the telephone. Ms. Paola, if you could turn your camera on and announce your name and address for the governing body, you can proceed.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you. Please announce your name.
Thank you. Adam Fiala of Sills, Cummins and Gross. We represent Monmouth Commerce Center, LLC, the contract purchaser of Block 5, Lots 2 and 3, and the owner of the property is represented by Matt Fioravanti of Giordano, who also represents other property owners within the SED zone. We believe this ordinance is contrary to sound planning and to the goals of the municipal land use law, inconsistent with the master plan, and fails to accomplish the goals it sets forth in the resolution. The township has not presented any studies or data to support its conclusory statements contained in the resolution in support of passing this ordinance, and many of those statements are actually factually incorrect. In addition, we can object to the content, publication, and mailing of the notice. We also object to the procedure that limits each objector to 5 minutes, which precludes a meaningful hearing when we have multiple witnesses, even if we are allowed a little bit more time for the witnesses. We have a licensed professional planner, Andrew Janu, and a licensed traffic engineer, Justin Taylor. And at this time, I'd like to call Mr. Janu to testify. If you can let him in as a panelist, please.
Okay, Mr. Janu is being admitted into the room.
Good evening.
Mr. Janu, can you please provide just planning testimony on this ordinance and its consistency with the municipal land use law or inconsistency?
Certainly. First, for the record, I am a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey. NJSA 4055D-62 is a portion of the municipal land use law which talks about how an ordinance is created and what the contents of that ordinance must include. It requires that every zoning ordinance must be either deemed substantially consistent with the land use element and housing plan element of the master plan, or designed to effectuate those plan elements. The governing body can adopt an ordinance which is found to be in whole or in part inconsistent, but only upon an affirmative vote of the majority of the governing body, and with the finding that the ordinance carries out the purposes of the ordinance. In this case, when the zoning ordinance contemplated the use for the SED district, in fact, assumed the location, it assumed the infrastructure. In fact, the very purpose of the SED district is stated, and I'll read this into the record. The purpose of the SED zone is to provide for a variety of economic development opportunities in areas of the township where rail and highway infrastructure are readily available. So in and of itself, within the very purpose of the district, it states what type of uses were contemplated, what type of infrastructure is available, and then went on to include uses such as warehouses, distribution centers, manufacturing, office, medical office, and the like, because there's a presumption that when you did your analysis of the SED district, there was a finding that in fact the land was capable of those uses, the infrastructure was capable of those uses. In this case, the SED zone did exactly what it was intended to do. It attracted the appropriate users to the property that you zoned for those uses. It was successful. You married uses with users. You've created economic activity and you've created job opportunities. And in fact, you've encouraged these uses in facilities and locations that are proximate to highway zoning, to county highway zoning, to roads, infrastructures, rail. And in fact, when you adopted recent warehouse uses off of Fairfield Road, you even contemplated infrastructure improvements to accommodate truck turning lanes. Those properties in that area are in fact close to the highway district. What you're doing today is what's known as ad hoc zoning. You're zoning by variance, and that's very inappropriate. And in fact, contrary to the municipal land use law. Municipal land use law sets forth guidelines for zoning, stating the purposes of the zoning and not leaving it to an ad hoc decision by the zoning board to review it on a case-by-case basis. That's contrary to the land use law, and there is a lot of case law on that matter. So I'd have to object to the procedure that you followed here as being inconsistent with the purposes of the municipal land use law. Furthermore, you have other options other than entirely eliminating the use. If you're concerned about fulfillment centers, and fulfillment centers are different than warehouse and distribution uses, you can remove fulfillment centers or stipulate within the zone that fulfillment centers are not permitted. You can also make warehouse and distribution uses conditional and place some reasonable conditions on those uses to accommodate it. But removing it in its entirety is contrary to your master plan, contrary to the purpose of the SCD zone, and essentially ad hoc zoning.
Time is
Were you
up.
able to have just 30 seconds only for the time it took to bring Andrew in? It feels a little penalized for calling a witness if that counts as part of the time.
Yeah, sure, go ahead. I mean, if you have only 30 more seconds, I mean, I think that's fair.
Yeah, the only other thing I'd like, Adam, did you have a question or?
No, you can continue.
Okay, the only other thing I wanted to bring in is that in the 2019 master plan reexamination and the land use element reexamination, you not only cited that the SED district was appropriate in this location, but you also sought to create an SED light district, encouraging industrial zoning and warehouse and industrial, warehouse and distribution uses in areas that within that ordinance you cite as in closer proximity to residential uses. So you embraced the use as recently as 2019, you encouraged the use as 2019, you were expanding the use as recently as 2019. And then in terms of consistency of application, that very reexamination stipulates at the end that there was a recommendation at some point to remove manufacturing and that the council failed to remove manufacturing from the district. You went through the studies, there was a recommendation and you did nothing about it. But here you're rushing to a conclusion on warehouse and distribution and recommending within line item 23 of your resolution that it be done by variance as opposed to zoning.
Thank you. And we reiterate Mr. Bazralian's point that we think it would be more logical to table the ordinance rather than rush it through tonight. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your comments. There, I'm moving in the next person, Matthew Fioravati. Again, I apologize if I'm damaging your name.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Fioravanti from the law firm of Giordano, Halloran, and Ciesla. Represent Arnold Steel Company, Inc., the owner of Block 38, lots 2.01 and 3, also commonly known as 79 Randolph Road, also within the SED zone. Arnold Steel opposes the adoption of the ordinance for the reasons set forth by Mr. Janu. We also incorporate the procedural shortcomings with the adoption of this ordinance, given the issues with the content, the notice, and the publication of that notice, which renders not only the notice defective, but the ultimate adoption of this ordinance. I would like to present Justin Taylor, a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey, to address the traffic-related components of the ordinance. So if you can allow Mr. Taylor into the room.
Sure. Moving Mr. Taylor into the room right now.
Hello, everybody can hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Great, thank you very much for the opportunity. As part of this, I've had a chance to review the proposed resolution from a traffic and circulation perspective. Based upon my understanding of the information, I just wanted to point out that the unsubstantiated, and in my opinion, incorrect assumption that warehouses will generate significant impacts to noise, traffic, and air pollution when compared to other uses that are permitted and will remain permitted within the SED zone. Based on data published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, traditional warehouses are one of the lowest traffic generators per square foot. Just choosing several other different land uses that are permitted within the SED zone, manufacturing generates traffic at a rate 68% higher than warehouses. General office generates at a rate 288% higher. And medical office, which is also permitted within the zone, generates at a rate of 853% higher than a warehouse use. So the presumption that eliminating the warehouse use from the SED zone will reduce the traffic impact of development within the zone is false based upon the nationally published data. I do agree that the type and variety of warehousing has evolved since the original ordinance was written. Fulfillment centers and/or last mile distribution facilities and e-commerce as we really know it was essentially unheard of back in 1997 when the warehouses were included in the SED zone. However, they're not a trend that started 14 months ago at the beginning of the pandemic. ITE has been collecting data on fulfillment centers since 2008 and has actually updated their rates in a supplement to the 10th edition of Trip Generation, which was published in 2020. Based on this supplement, fulfillment centers, the sort that packages the actual goods and then distributes them out to the general public, it generates traffic rates based on ITE that's comparable with general office. And it's definitely at a rate that's higher than traditional warehouse, but it's not at some astronomical rate. And it's actually a lower generator than some of the other uses that I mentioned previously. I do applaud the township in looking into defining and addressing this new type of land use, but I don't think the elimination of one of the lower generating types of uses within the zone is really the right way to go about it. I also disagree with the assumption that the warehouse will generate more air pollution than other uses permitted within the zone. Understanding that tractor trailers are really inherent to warehouse facilities. It's interesting to note that many new technologies in the shipping industry continue to reduce the carbon footprint of trucking. From improved routing using GPS facilities to autonomous vehicles to improve fuel efficiency, there's also the utilization of alternative fuels. And the trucking industry is really making big strides to reduce their environmental impact. I'm sure you guys have all seen in the news, Amazon just recently purchased 100,000 electric delivery vehicles from Rivian. And that's in order for them to hit their carbon zero goal that they're shooting for 2040. So if you're talking about a last mile distribution facility, these are the type of vehicles that are going to be utilizing that.
I'm sorry, one more minute.
Okay. A little closer to home too in this, there's a warehouse distributor in Freehold, just over the border from Howell along Business 33 that actually has converted a vast majority of their trucking fleet to natural gas. And they actually installed a New Jersey natural gas station directly next door in order to improve both fuel economy for their vehicles, but also the emissions, which reduces emissions drastically from your typical diesel fuel. So I don't really believe that the resolution is accurate to assume that a warehouse use is going to contribute more air pollution than some of the other manufacturing uses that are still permitted within the zone. And that's all I have for this.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. Mr. Fioravanti, do you have anything else?
No, just to express that for those reasons and for the reasons previously expressed by counsel, Arnold Steele would request that this ordinance be tabled as procedurally and substantively defective. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you very much, sir. Mayor, I'm moving in. The next participant is a phone caller, 917 phone number, moving into the room. Sir, you need to unmute and you can address the council. Please identify yourself with your name and address. The last four digits, 7950. You're in the room and can address the council. Please unmute your phone.
Mr. Gigi, maybe you want to remind them that it's a *6 if they need to unmute their phone in case they weren't in on the call earlier.
Yes. Hi, good evening. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, we can. Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it. My name is Gregory Gett. I represent Gutierrez Properties at 1333 Campus Parkway, Howell Township, New Jersey. We are the owners of block 49, lots 20.01, 21.01, and 26.01. I'll keep my statements brief to avoid repeating some of the earlier points, which of course we adopt. We are a local longtime business located on Squonkam Road. We have several properties that we use for storage of equipment and materials. And we have operate for a long time as a local business in your township.
Our concern here is that the ordinance as drafted is overbroad and that it creates regulatory hurdles for us as it comes to use of the property. We believe it'll unfairly impact long-term local business owners. We are not all warehouses. We're not all the same in what we do on our properties. And our concern is that this by eliminating use entirely in the SED zone will force us to more regulatory hurdles whenever we seek to modernize or adapt use of our property. Therefore, we would urge the council to reconsider and to approach the issue in a more nuanced way based on studies and better information, and make sure we don't impact local business owners in a negative way. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mayor, next we have another attorney, Craig Gianetti, moving into the room currently.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Just want to confirm you can hear me. Great, thank you. And before my clock starts, I have an expert witness as well, Andy Janu, who testified before previously, but have additional testimony related to site-specific issues. And for the record, I'm here on behalf of Frizza 1 LLC, who is the owner of lot 8.01, block 177 on Fairfield Road. I believe it has an address of 393 Fairfield Road, but it might not be in an exact number. This property is also located in the SED zone. And if Mr. Jano could be admitted. And just confirm that my clock is not running.
No, I put it on pause.
Thank you.
Is admitted to the room currently.
Great, thank you. So I see Mr. Janu, as he gets ready, I just want to kind of some introductory and I guess a question from Mr. Clark. There was discussion before about the planning board inconsistency review. Has a report been provided to the governing body with respect to that inconsistency review?
Well, this is a hearing on it, so it's not a question and answer session, Mr. Gianetti. So if you have comments on the ordinance, you can address them to council.
Well, I plan to, but I think that's a relevant question to any procedural defect of whether or not there is in fact a report that has been issued.
Well, we have the determination of the planning board that there was an inconsistency with the master plan. So that's from April 15th, and I think that's a matter of record before the planning board.
When you say matter of record, are you referring to like a vote, or was there an actual report issued?
Mr. Gianetti, you're burning up your time on a question and answer session. If you have testimony that you'd like Mr. Janu to provide to council, I suggest that you get on with that.
All right. Well, again, there's clear procedural issues that the governing body is just ignoring, which creates significant issues on any sort of appeal with respect to property rights being infringed upon. So I hope they give due consideration to all of that. And I know there's already been talk about improper notices, and I kind of would adopt that as well. There's obviously planning issues, both generally and specific to my client's site, that are raising concerns. You're effectively removing warehouse uses from all zones without performing any sort of analysis on a site-by-site basis of whether or not warehousing is appropriate for any site in the SED zone. The case law is clear, referring to Rhea Finnegan versus Council of South Brunswick, which is a Supreme Court case, that there needs to be, when there's an inconsistency review of or determination by the planning board, it's clear that the town needs to explain why the various sites impacted are no longer appropriate for that use. And again, as even Mr. Janu noted, that the ad hoc planning is specifically prohibited by case law and municipal land use law. And also, as Mr. Gazarovski noted, 40:55D-90 prohibits moratoriums on development applications in order to prepare a master plan or development regulation, which is clearly the purpose. Now, we're not saying, we understand the public concern and issues with
warehouses, but even as Mr. Taylor noted in earlier testimony, fulfillment centers and distribution centers. But really, instead of taking an axe, we're asking that the governing body use a scalpel and determine, all right, these sites might not be appropriate for warehouse, but these sites are, and that sort of analysis needs to be done. So at this point, I'd like Mr. Deneau talk about specifically the lot 8.01, block 177 owned by Frizza One LLC.
Thank you.
You have a minute left.
Not to my timer. I see I have 2 minutes left.
Okay, so I'm going to try to rush through this quickly. So block 177 lot 8.01 is located on the east side of Fairfield Road, just south of Route 33. This is the SED zoning, and in fact meets exactly the definition of what the SED zone was first defined in your master plan in 1994, meaning an appropriate location near highway access and rail. In fact, rail is located to the south of this property, highway access to the north. And in fact, the state spent a significant amount of money improving Route 33 with the bypass in order to avoid local traffic, which to come out exactly here at this Fairfield Avenue location. The zoning board here saw fit to approve an application for a warehouse used directly across the street in the HD2 zone, deeming that to be particularly suited for this use. We certainly believe that this property within the SED is also particularly suited, not only because of its location, but because of the infrastructure capabilities within this area, because of the ability of this property to absorb the use, and for the fact that, in fact, the traffic, infrastructure, sewer, all that works for this property. It's appropriate located, it's exactly within the definition of what the SED sought to accomplish. This property is on point with the very definition of the uses in SED. And in fact, anything short of removing that use would be ad hoc, because there have been determinations of appropriate suitability even outside the zone but proximate to this location. So I would say it would be, quite frankly, counterintuitive to your zoning to remove this use from this location. Again, you shouldn't be zoning by variance, you should be zoning by the capabilities of the property, and the capabilities of this property are more than sufficient for warehouse and distribution use, and in fact would have significantly little impact on the town because of the presence of the bypass, which will take traffic off of local roads, and because of all the things that Justin said about the evolving technology within trucks and pollution and the like. The premises of which this resolution for purposes is based on has not been formally studied, and quite frankly, I think reaches unsustainable conclusions. We can't do things essentially on a net opinion. You need to have the information in front of you, and I don't think you've done that.
Time is up.
Thank you. I'll just wrap up. Again, we understand issues and concerns with these fulfillment centers and distribution centers, but doing a blanket warehouse prohibition, especially when it's clearly prohibited by the municipal land use law, that you can't prohibit essentially applications from going forward, so you can then determine later what sites and zones would be appropriate. And it just creates a risk for the town when you're taking action like this that would be in such clear violation of the MLUL, that you're dealing with substantive due process rights that also incurs, has fee shifting aspects to it. So I would ask the governing body to reconsider, table this until a more thorough analysis of where sites are appropriate, where sites are not appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mayor, moving on to the next participant. I have Henry. I'm moving into the room. Henry, if you could turn on your camera, state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Henry Kent Smith. I'm with the firm of Fox Rothschild. I represent Jonathan Green and Sons. We are a 45-year-old long-term business in this township. My client's property is located on 48 Squonkam Yellowbrook Road in the township. We are probably the foremost developer of grass seed in this country. My client's business has been thriving. And I wanted to just note for the record that we provided the council with a letter this morning, May 11th,
detailing my client's business and our concerns relative to ordinance 21-10 as it may be applied to my client's property. We believe it's a long-standing business that is effectively an assembly use in the zone. That's a agricultural service provider use in the zone, that this ordinance that prohibits warehouse and distribution is not applicable to my client's property. However, I don't know that. I don't have that determination. I can't make that determination for my client based on the paucity of information that we have. So given the facts that I've provided in my May 11th letter, we respectfully request that the council undertake and direct that its zoning officer and planning department do a more thorough analysis of particular properties, and specifically my client's property, to determine the applicability of this ordinance to my client's business. We've been very successful, and we hope to expand our business in this township. We actually are working right now on the preparation of an expansion plan. However, without clear direction that my client's property is not affected adversely by being rendered non-conforming by this ordinance, we're not able to make that business investment decision. So I echo a lot of the comments that this council has heard from other business owners that are concerned that this ordinance is overbroad, that it may inadvertently sweep in longstanding business members of this community into a non-conforming status. I believe this concern should be addressed. I believe it's appropriate for the council to direct the planning office and the zoning officer to make specific determinations as to whether or not particular uses are affected and impacted adversely by this ordinance. We trust that this is not the case. And to the extent that it is, we most heartily would object to and join with our fellow businesses in such a broad application of the ordinance. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Mayor, next I am moving in. Next participant is David Kern, moving into the room. Mr. Kern, please unmute, state your name, and unmute and turn your camera on, state your name and address for the record.
Okay, I've unmuted. If my camera's not on, I apologize. I don't know how to turn it on. So I just want to say real quickly that I'm an attorney for Oldcastle APG. And what I wanted to point out in this ordinance, the proposed ordinance, is it says at the explanatory statement that it references removing manufacture of concrete as a permitted use, and specifically prohibit manufacture of asphalt or concrete in the SED zone. And I just wanted to say that, to me, that was addressed in ordinance 2020, which the planning board found inconsistent with the master plan. So I just want to point that, I'm assuming it's a defect in the notice, so, or the proposed ordinance. And I just want to make sure that, I echo the comments of the attorneys that have gone before me, but I just want to make sure that if we're going to rezone these areas or impact these areas, that the business already in those areas would be grandfathered in, but that doesn't, obviously stop all the problems that go along with that, as pointed out by the other attorneys. But I just wanted to point those things out. And I think that there's other people that need to speak with you also. I would appreciate if you'd give that your due attention.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mayor, next I am moving in Tina Smilik.
Tina Smilik, 33 Charles Street. I want to speak as a resident here for 46 years in Howell. We, the residents, are our own witnesses. We don't have the money these businesses do to speak up. Because if we had our own witnesses, we would absolutely have people here that would oppose what they are saying, because that's what it is, these witnesses. At the end of the day, the people who matter are the people that live here and that have to deal with the end result of all of this going on. The first person talked about rationale. Well, the rationale is we, the taxpayers, get stuck fixing roads. We get stuck with traffic. We get stuck putting up lights, which we've all noticed, which comes down to taxpayers' money. Now, the uses, this is just SED. They're not wrong though, saying SED light needed to be taken care of first. You're going out of order here. You know, they also talked about substantial investments. Well, how many residents in this town made a substantial investment in their homes and we have to live here? That's a substantial investment. That's what we also need to think about. That being said, I do believe there are legal aspects of the way this was done. And I think there was a lot of mistakes made putting this out. Currently we have 7 applications that are in the process that will be grandfathered in. I'm hoping that this is not just a political play that says that you did this so we can see it on a postcard. Because right now what I'm looking at is if you table this, people are going to, these businesses are going to rush in and put in applications. And they're going to do that so they can be grandfathered before you pass it. If you do not table this, the Howell taxpayers are going to be on the line for lawsuits. So right now it's looking like we, the taxpayers, are losing on this either way. So I don't know why this was such a rush to put on, and you guys didn't discuss this and talk to professionals and get this done right. But we have a problem. We don't want these warehouses, and that's a resident. You know what? This is our investment. This is our town. We deal with the consequences of every decision you make. So you know what? You have a big decision to make tonight. And I really feel bad that you put this on the agenda so quick without thinking it through, because I really don't think you thought it through. Planning board, I told you months and months for the last time, go back and get this SED light straightened out. Nobody wanted to go back. Planning board could have already did the SED light and made it so it wasn't warehouse. You're giving people a reason to go against you. So one, don't let me see this on any political post, because this isn't a good sign right now. We, the residents, pay for all of this. These businesses that are showing their witness after witness and paying all this money, shame on you, because we, the residents, pay a lot of money for our residents here, and we pay a lot of tax money, and every time we get screwed with traffic, we get screwed with roads, and we get screwed paying for every little aspect that you bring in your witnesses and say is not going to happen. And guess what? Every time they happen. So you know what? All of you think really hard on this, because we, the residents, don't want this. And this is all because proper planning wasn't done in past administrations that we're now dealing with this. And you're not going to find one resolution that's going to solve all our problems, because we need to take the whole thing. We need to take this as a whole and look at this. And until you decide to do that, until you decide to sit down and really look at this, we're not going anywhere except for lawsuits, or we're going to get this crammed down our throat. So whatever you decide, good luck.
Thank you. Mayor, next I am moving in Mario Minervini, moving into the room. Mr. Minervini, if you could unmute, state your name and address, and you can address the council.
I believe I just did it. Yes, how you doing? Mario Minervini here, resident 352 Lanes Pond Road. Just wanted to make a point. Tina kind of made some of it already. I do, my property is across from Unfi over on Oak Glen. I don't know if I was allowed to say that, but I did. And I am witness to exactly what, as a resident, we would have a complaint about. The trucks roll all through the night, right around through our residential neighborhood, 53-foot, whatever they are, 15-ton trucks. There's an overpass over Haystack Brook over here that is being damaged by these trucks. Now, they're not allowed to be going through this residential area. Building more of these warehouses is only going to cause that in other neighborhoods, not just mine. So I wanted to speak out as a resident to say I'm for this ordinance. We don't need more warehouses around our neighborhoods. And if there's a place where they belong, then let it be zoned. Let it be zoned there, let it happen. But as an example, if you live in this area, you know what I'm talking about. It's just going all night long with these trucks.
and the roads are getting damaged. And like Tina said, we're going to pay for it. As taxpayers, we're going to want to pay for it. So please, please pass this ordinance. The lawyers, you guys can fight it later, but we should have this passed.
Okay, thank you for your comments, sir. Mayor, next I will be moving in Rob Simon. If you turn on your camera, state your name and address, and you can address the governing body. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yes? Okay. My name is Rob Simon. I'm an attorney with Herald Law in Warren, New Jersey. I'm here representing AAFFHW Property LLC, who is the contract purchaser of 29 Howell Road, Block 164, Lot 5 here in Howell. I also have with me Paul Phillips of Phillips Price, a professional planner. I would like to make a few statements, and then I will have ask Paul to be brought into the room. On behalf of our client, we oppose the ordinance both procedurally and substantively. There are numerous procedural defects with regard to this application, certainly. First and foremost, with regard to this process, there's a Supreme Court case law that talks about the fact that just allowing a 5-minute limitation for each speaker is improper, and that at a minimum, an additional 5 minutes available when all first-time speakers have been heard is appropriate. And again, that Supreme Court case on that. We also join and adopt the objections expressed by prior counsel and the respective expert witnesses, including Mr. Janu and Mr. Taylor. The notice provided with regard to this for this hearing for this ordinance is egregiously defective, especially with regard to NJS 40:49-2 in terms of the fact that after every ordinance is introduced, it has to be published by title and summary together with the time and place where it's going to be further considered, with a concise statement prepared by the clerk setting forth the purpose of the ordinance. And as we know under the law, this notice requirement is strictly construed, and failure to comply with the statutory requirements requiring publication renders the ordinance invalid. And in this case, what it stated in the published notice is that the ordinance intended to allow microbreweries as a permitted use, and to remove manufacturing of concrete as permitted use, and to specifically prohibit manufacturing of asphalt and concrete in the SED zone. Of course, we all know that the purpose of this ordinance has nothing to do whatsoever with what I just stated. So the ordinance summary in the published notice clearly was incorrect. It was misleading. There was no clear and concise statement in the published public notice setting forth the correct purpose of the notice of the ordinance. No new notice correcting the error was ever published. There was never published notice of the time and the place for the final passage of the ordinance, namely tonight. There's no mention in the published notice that the SED1 zone is also impacted by the proposed rezoning. In addition to which, under the municipal land use law, specifically section 40:55D-62.1, in terms of providing notice to property owners regarding a change in the classification of a zone district, again, there was defects, including those that have been raised by prior counsel, including the fact that, as Mr. Giannetti pointed out in the questioning of counsel, that there's been no compliance whatsoever with NJS 40:55D-26 in terms of the referral powers to the planning board, where the planning board is obligated, at least within the first 35 days, to provide a report, including the identification of any provisions of the proposed development regulation, which are inconsistent with the master plan, and recommendations concerning those inconsistencies, as well as any other matters that the board deems appropriate, and that the governing body, when considering the adoption of a development regulation, is to review the report of the planning board and may disapprove or change any recommendation by a vote. But you have not received any report regarding recommendations and any other matters that planning board deemed appropriate. So to undertake your responsibilities, and the 35 days, as we know, has not passed. In addition to which, there's no mention of the SED1 zone, which is of course also impacted by the proposed rezoning. There's no notice to property owners in that zone. So I'd like to have Mr. Paul Phillips be brought in, please. And again, we do object to having this rush through with professionals, especially given the comments by counsel at the beginning that this council would try to accommodate those with counsel and expert witnesses.
Moving Mr. Phillips in, just keep in mind that the time limit still applies, so.
Yeah, my objection is noted. Go ahead, Paul.
I'm sure.
Good evening, Paul Phillips, licensed professional planner with the firm of Phillips Price. I want to focus on several things given the time constraints. First, I think the fact that this ordinance did not include either an explanatory statement or a preamble that stated its purpose, I think is particularly troubling, especially since before it was introduced, there was no study, at least that we're aware of. And it was done without consideration of the master plan reexamination and land use element amendment from late 2019. I think it's fair to say that these documents are up to date and reasonably reflect land use policy and planning objectives in the township. I'm in complete agreement with the planning board regarding inconsistency with the master plan. In fact, the master plan actually recommended expanding warehouse and distribution in certain areas adjacent to existing SED zones. If the ordinance is adopted, warehousing and distribution would be eliminated as a principal permitted use. And this is important because it would preclude any type of wholesaler, supplier, distributor, showroom from locating in the township. This is not just about Amazon or last mile delivery services or fulfillment centers.
Please.
I'm sorry?
Can we ask
for 2 seconds to wrap it up?
Yeah, can we ask for 1 more minute to wrap it up? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you've heard about the issues with inconsistency with the master plan. We took a look at properties in the town. A significant portion of properties are going to be rendered non-conforming in the township. Also, I think one last critical point, we all know that warehousing distributions have been an economic driver in the state. It's been an economic driver in Howell over the last several years. And certainly we can expect it to be an economic driver in the future. And it would otherwise basically preempt, I think, your ability to look at probably the #1 non-residential rateable that could help balance your tax base as you deal with significant new residential development. I think the ordinance is an overreach.
You're
There are
well
less onerous.
I'm going to have to cut you off at this point.
Okay, well, we'd respectfully ask that at the end, once all members of the public have an opportunity, that we bring back Mr. Phillips to conclude his comments. Thank you.
Mayor, we are now moving on to the next participant. I have a Margaret Carmelli that has not spoken yet, so I'm going to bring her into the room. Carmelli, if you could unmute and turn your camera on and proceed with your name and address and comments.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present this evening. My name is Margaret Carmelli. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Offit Kerman, and I'm appearing this evening on behalf of John Foreman, Peter Foreman, and Clayton Foreman. They are owners of property block 164, lot 5.01, and it is located in the SED zone. The Foreman's property is one of the many properties that will be affected by this ordinance if it is adopted. We would like to join in and support the testimony that's been provided here tonight, in particular on behalf of AAFFHW Properties, as well as the other attorneys and experts that have presented. We join and support in their comments that there are significant procedural, notice, and substantive defects with the ordinance as proposed. And we would respectfully request that the ordinance be tabled and not be adopted without addressing the comments that have been raised here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carmelli. Mayor, next. Again, I am admitting people into the room that have not had an opportunity to speak yet. So next I will bring Steve into the room. Steve, please state your name and address for the council, and you can address the governing body on this ordinance.
Good evening. My name is Steve Miller. I'm not an attorney. My wife and I own a property on Fairfield Road in Freehold. And I just wanted to give you a little perspective from a small business owner as to how this may impact us and our future. I don't have the benefit of counsel, and I don't know all the ins and outs of the ordinance. I assume that this will permit me to do the business that we currently do. I'm just not sure if this is going to allow us, when we decide to retire, to sell this business, to sell the building with the same usage as what we were using it for. And at that point, it begins to affect our retirement. Contrary to what some of the public thinks, as a small business, we're not multi-millionaires that own mega properties and have a cadre of attorneys. We're small business owners. We bought the property in 2005 and have been doing business in Howell since then. We've been paying our taxes and not using the services. So from a financial standpoint, business owners like ourselves owning these buildings are a real boon for the township. Nobody's going to the school. Nobody's, taxing all the different services. And as far as the traffic goes, I would invite any of the council people or the government body to park in my parking lot and listen to the traffic during the day. The majority of the excess noise is from private vehicles and motorcycles. It is not from trucks. And Industrial Way is a pretty busy road during the daytime. And then it's usually around 4:30 or 5, well, right after rush hour, 5:36, it's like a ghost town over there. So I can't say what's going on with the SED zones in the rest of the township, but I can tell you in our area over on Fairfield Road, I think it's fine. One of the properties that was over on Fairfield Road, they wanted, several years ago, they wanted to put a sports facility in there. And the townspeople objected to that. Well, if you're looking to get rid of housing, warehousing and distribution, and when it's zoned for sports facilities, you don't allow that to be put there, then what exactly is the purpose of buying property in the township and trying to develop it and provide a service to people and to provide taxes and employment to the township people? Just wanted to give you the perspective of a small business owner. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Very good. Thank you very much, sir. Again, Mayor, I am, those that still have their hands up, I am selecting those that have not yet participated. Next, I have a Lisa Dowd moving into the room.
We're just about at an hour to let you know.
Thank you. Ms. Dowd, if you could unmute, turn your camera on.
Thank you.
State your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Lisa Dowd. I live at 93 Merrick Road in Farmingdale. I mean, I support this ordinance. I sit on the Environmental Commission and I also sit on Shade Tree. And I mean, we've looked at least 7 warehouse projects that are in the works. We see massive amounts of trees being cut down. Our waterways are being affected. And all of these lawyers and planners who are coming on are saying that the roads are fine, and they're not. The roads are falling apart. We don't have the infrastructure to support all of these warehouses. I now live within 2 miles of at least 4 massive warehouse projects that are going to go up around me. And I pay too much money in taxes to have to deal with tractor trailers that are driving up and down roads that were never built to handle tractor trailer traffic. So I have a real problem with listening to traffic experts who don't live in this town, who tell us that our infrastructure is fine when it's not. Our roads were made for agricultural traffic. They were never made for tractor trailers. They were never made to handle the amount of traffic that we're seeing now. And it's not possible for our town to handle this without massive infrastructure changes. And none of these developers are going to pay for that. And the people in the town are the ones who end up paying. And it's not fair to everybody who lives here to have to constantly fight with lawyers and planners and traffic experts who know nothing about our town and care nothing about our town and keep telling us that this is good for us. And I would say most of the warehouse projects are telling us that they have no tenants. They are probably not going to be employing people who live in Howell. And I mean, I can tell you right now, I can drive a mile down the street and pass 2 empty warehouses that have absolutely no tenants. So the fact that we're going to put up 7 more warehouses with no tenants in them makes absolutely no sense for this town. And the fact that the traffic expert is stating that there's rail availability, there's no rails that run through this town. There's no bus service. It's all road traffic. And if you guys haven't driven Fairfield Road or some of the back roads, they're falling apart. And we can't handle more tractor trailer traffic going up and down these roads without doing some massive infrastructure, with none of these developers paying for it, but the residents of the town paying for it. And it's not fair to us. We don't want. So I hope that we come to a resolution on this, but the fact that the residents that live here have to keep fighting with lawyers and traffic planners and people who don't know our town is not fair to everybody who lives here. So I hope that we can find a solution and we can do what's right for the people who live here. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's an hour.
Mayor, we are at the 1 hour time limit. Currently, I have 2 people with their hands up that have not spoken yet and 3 repeats.
So let's afford the 5 minutes to the 2 people who haven't spoken. And I would just, I'm going to ask council and yourself as well. I mean, the people who have spoken, can we bring them back for 3 minutes?
We'll proceed with the 2 that haven't spoken and then decide at that point if you'd like.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Okay, next I am bringing, I'm sorry, Mayor, I misspoke. It's 3 that have not spoken yet and 2 that have. I apologize. Next, I'm bringing in Henry into the room. I'm sorry, this mistake. Henry, I'm going to have to move you back.
Okay.
Stand by.
Thank you.
Apologize for that. Next, I have Barry Green, who has not spoken yet, I don't believe. Moving him into the room currently. Right. Mayor, I don't know if you wish to make an announcement. We have other people raising their hand now currently after the 1 hour time limit. If you'd like, I can cut those off at this point. But first we'll let Mr. Barry Green speak. Go ahead.
Hello, how you doing there? Let me just stick my video. Yes, thank you for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to be heard. My name is Barry Green. I'm actually the president of Jonathan Green. We've been a happy resident of Howell Township for 48 years, so we're not new. We've been there a long time. We've always enjoyed being in the township. We've been a sort of quiet taxpayer for a long time. We put up our first warehouse. We
my father actually purchased the property in 1973. We started to build a warehouse in 74 and we occupied it in 75. In 1986, we put up a second warehouse. Now, these are relatively small warehouses. Our first was 20,000 square feet. The second one was 20,000 square feet. But we've been fortunate, our business plan has worked. And over the last, say, 15 years, our brand has grown. So we are actually sold nationwide. So we're very proud of that. The Howell Township company is now selling grass seed in California. It's that far away. But also in 1986, we opened a research and production facility in Salem, Oregon, because that's where grass seed comes from. And we still package 90% of all the grass seed in Howell. So we've had to invest in a high-speed packaging machine, which has not arrived yet. It comes in June. We just can't physically fit the grass seed in the building anymore that we would need to run this machine. We're a good employer. We're running we've run a day crew forever. Now we have a night crew. And we still can't keep up. So if we're not allowed to add on to our existing building, it's really going to hamper our growth, which I think is unfair considering that we've been there for a long time. But also, this is kind of on a personal note, but we take a lot of pride in the building. When we build buildings, we don't build cheap buildings. We would like to expand our office as well. It will be a first-class structure when it's done. My own wife actually won the Howell Township Beautification Award for gardening back in 1984, and I still got the plaque in my office for that. So we are we're proud residents of the town, but we really we purchased our 25 acres and we've only developed 7.5 of it. A lot of it is still wooded, and we would build a beautiful building when we do it, and we need to do it in order to survive. I don't know, we would really be hampered if we weren't able to do that. So I do hear what people are saying. I would make this final point. We're on Squankland Yellowbrook Road. I think everybody knows where we are. We don't have a lot of tractor trailers. We have about 8 trucks in total. But when they leave our property, they go left and they make a right-hand turn and they get on 195 and they leave the area. So we're not rolling around all over town. We're right by the highway, and that's about it. So anyway, thank you for hearing what I have to say. I do sympathize with town members. Everybody wants to hire an attorney, but I thought you should hear from me as a local owner, somebody who's been a resident of your township for a long time and proud to be one. So thank you for hearing what I have to say tonight.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Green.
Thank you.
Mayor, next I have a Rob Simon.
You want me to?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, hold on. I didn't realize he did speak already.
That's okay.
There is one phone call. We have a phone call that's moving into the room. The number ending in 0806. If you hit *6, you can unmute and state your name and address. Speak to the council.
Hi, my name is Judy Kirchhoff. My husband and I, Ralph Kirchhoff, live at 300 Squankland Road in Farmingdale, New Jersey, which is Howell. We moved here in 1976. We're only a quarter of a mile off of 195. We service the community of Howell, New Jersey and Farmingdale with agricultural supplies, animal feeds, bedding, and hay. We live here in the town. We pay our taxes. We love the township, and we are not bothered by, our deliveries coming through the town. They come right off the highway and right into our property. I think we are really important to service the townspeople for their pets and supplies.
And I just feel that we're being treated unfairly. Being a small business owner, we've been living here since 1976, never had a problem. And I think people need to know that there are people that live in this community that love it and help the community. Instead of traveling distances to get pet foods, supplies, we're local. That's all I wanted to say, and I'm against this realliance of this SED zone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Mayor, now the only ones remaining have spoken already. What's the governing body's pleasure with them returning? We're well over the hour time limit.
If I could make a
So-
recommendation, Mayor, on this, we have
Yeah.
Mr. Israelian, who we had asked to go back to the end of the line and wait, and Mr. Fioravanti, who's also spoken. So if we want to allot them, we don't have anybody else with their hand up, so we have just the two of them. We have Mr. Simon, who previously spoke as well. So those three, I would suggest we give them each an additional 3 minutes to summarize and make any other statements they may have.
Okay, so I'm gonna just ask, that if we do that, can we take a break after that, or can we take a break now, or, I just wanna, I need 5 minutes.
Sure, so we have
Sorry.
the three of them, and we'll limit the remainder of the hearing to Mr. Fioravanti, Mr. Bisraelian, and Mr. Simon, and council can vote on that and extending each of their times by 3 minutes. So if
Okay,
you want to do that, and then I suppose we could take a short recess. and
like
then-
5 minutes, just 5 minutes.
Okay.
I agree.
So,
We just need a motion to extend the public hearing for the purpose of giving Mr. Fioravanti, Mr. Bisraelian, and Mr. Simon each an additional 3 minutes.
I will make that motion to extend additional time to the remaining 3 people.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And so if you want to take a quick recess before we get to that, we just need a motion to take a 5-minute recess.
So moved.
Second?
thank you.
Aye.
Mayor?
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you. We will return in 5 minutes.
thank you.
There we go.
Okay, Mayor, we have everyone back in the room. We will return Matthew Fioravanti back to the room. Fioravanti, I apologize, sir.
Quite all right. I appeared earlier this evening on behalf of the owners of Block 38, lots 2.01 and 3. I also represent the owners of Block 5, lots 2 and 3, and also the owner of Block 38, Lot 1. I just want to reiterate that, as has been expressed already, the town has an obligation to base its zoning on some analysis of the parcels located within the zone that are going to be impacted by this ordinance, which they have clearly failed to do. Much of what is in the proposed resolution has nothing to do with warehouse uses or the SED zone and does not support or provide any rationale for the adoption of this ordinance. I would also like to call on behalf of these owners, Mr. Janu, to complete his planning testimony briefly and to offer some site-specific comments as to the Block 5, lots 2 and 3.
Allow him into the room, but we're still keeping to the strict 3-minute timeline.
Good evening. Can you hear me or? Okay.
Yes,
Okay, so as Matt mentioned, we have a grouping of properties within the SCD district. And again, these properties are ideally situated within the SCD zone with the and mimic the intent of the zone as it was established in 1997, meaning availability to infrastructure. We've heard the comments from the public about their concerns, but we have to remember what's being proposed and what's creating this concern within the community are permitted uses in a district that has been deemed able to accommodate those uses. That's an analysis that you took back to 1997, and that's an analysis that you've conducted through every reexamination since 2007, 2010, 2018, 2019, and most recently within that reexamination, the SED zone was revisited. There was no finding that warehouse and distribution was detrimental to the public good. There was no finding that the use should be eliminated. In fact, it was found that it was so appropriate for the area, all SED areas, that in fact the SED districts should be expanded. And that's why the planning board determined that the ordinance that's being considered tonight was not consistent with the master plan. There's absolutely nothing for basis of any study within your master planning process to eliminate this use. The properties that we're talking about are all situated proximate to highways, and particularly the lot 38, lots 2 and 3, very southern end of the town, located in an area with other warehouse uses adjacent to it, proximity to Route 9, proximity to 195. It meets the very definition of where the SED district was intended to be, and has a use that has been permitted within that district for 23 plus years. There's been no basis for any of the conclusions that have come through, no studies, no formal studies, no impact studies that have proven to be detrimental. It is, I mentioned the term before, net opinion in my basis. I think Mr. Phillips hit the nail on the head by saying what you're doing is a dangerous process. Zoning by variance with these properties.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Your time is up. Thank you very much for your comments. Mayor, next I will return Joseph Azralian to the room.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'm not sure what happened. He disappeared from the screen.
That happens on the.
Meantime, we'll move on to Rob Simon, moving him into the room next.
Good evening. Can you
We
bring
have a
up,
strict 3-minute time limit.
right, could you bring Mr. Phillips back in, please? So that Mr. Phillips can complete his testimony. Go ahead, Paul.
Thanks. I only need a minute. I just wanted to add that I think the prudent course of action here, and particularly in light of the 2019 master plan, would be to conduct a thorough review of the properties and the locational attributes of all the various SCD zones. It's not one contiguous area. And then make a determination based on that analysis of what types of warehousing distribution uses are appropriate and where. There are less onerous ways, in my opinion, to address concerns regarding traffic and quality of life without placing an outright restriction and prohibition on warehousing and distribution. I really think that you need to study this and take the time to address it rationally and not purely reactively. So we would again urge the council to reconsider the adoption of this ordinance, and I thank you for your time.
And let me just also add on behalf of our client, and you heard from Ms. Smilik earlier about the idea, even though we may be on opposite sides of the fence with regard to this particular issue, that it's important not to engage in a rush to judgment and rather to do things right. And certainly what you've heard tonight, just not only on behalf of my client, but on behalf of really many esteemed lawyers and also business in this community, about the need and about the concerns that they have with regard to this ordinance, how it's going to impact their businesses and their pocketbooks. In fact, will impact the budget that you adopted this evening in terms of tax dollars that otherwise would go to the township. So certainly there are so many violations of municipal land use law, statutory provisions, law provisions inherent in the adoption of this ordinance, and that we would urge you respectfully to go back and really do it right and conduct the studies that the planners are suggesting. Conduct the review that the traffic engineer suggested, and also look at this comprehensively, so that if you want to adopt an ordinance, that it's done in accordance with the law, and that's really what the primary goal should be, certainly for this council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mayor, we had Mr. Berhalsian reappear, so we'll allow him his 3 minutes now.
Thank you. I lost contact and had to re-up my computer. Just very briefly, if I could. There was a comment about the traffic by Mr. Metavani in residential streets, and I want to point out to him that even if this ordinance were to be adopted, or a future ordinance is adopted, which prohibits the warehouse use, it grandfathers all the existing uses, and that traffic will be there. However, it is within the power of the municipality to restrict commercial traffic on residential streets, and it can do that and enforce it. I surmised also that when the SCD zone district was created, it was because the township saw it as a good commercial base. And I want to point out that has already been mentioned, each and every one of those businesses pays taxes. It contributes to the municipal budget. It contributes to the school budget. All of them are taxpayers of substantial amounts. I just want to go back to what I didn't say before, which is that I ask you, as others have, to table this ordinance. For so many reasons, it is invalid and doesn't meet the criteria of the municipal land use law. So that when you go back and view it, let's look at all those businesses that are there and have prospered all these years and have contributed to the township and will continue to do so. All of those that now exist in the SCD zone and elsewhere should continue to be permitted uses. They may not be able to expand under a future ordinance, and you may prohibit mega structures in the future. But for now, why would you render all these taxpayers non-conforming because of a desire which has not been borne out in your resolution or in any of the studies, which didn't exist, because you eliminated some of these uses without having done the proper studies. I want to point out to the resident who sells hay and straw and so on, that under the ordinance as proposed, retail uses are restricted to 1,000 square feet, or a percentage of 5%, whichever is less. So that retail use would go by the wayside as well. For all those reasons, I think this ordinance ought to be tabled, and you go back and do it properly so that everyone can be properly heard on whatever it is that you draft. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mayor, that concludes everybody we had for the public hearing portion.
I know, Mayor, may I?
Oh, the mayor's on mute. So we should close this portion. We should close the portion of the public hearing at this point.
I will close the portion of the public hearing for ordinance 021-10, but Councilman Bonovich, what is it that you would like to say?
I would like to just say I heard a lot. Some statutes I knew, some I did not. From Gazarovski to Janu, the planners, the residents, we all heard a lot. To me, I'm uncomfortable tonight. I'd like to table it and really think about it. I'll probably have to watch this meeting again. And I'd like all of us to get together and talk about this meeting. I'd like to table this ordinance. So I'd like to make the motion to table ordinance 0-21-10.
I'll second that motion, Councilman. I think that's a good idea.
Before we take a vote, Mayor, we do have Jennifer Beam and Ron Cachero Will we be hearing them tonight or we will make them come back?
We will, right now, we have the motion to table. We'll have Jennifer and Ron come back at a future time. I would also recommend tabling the companion resolution that goes with it.
Great.
Do we need to make a motion on that separately, Mr. Clark?
No, yeah, I mean, we can, well, we have the motion to table the ordinance. If you want to amend the motion to include the resolution as well, you can table ordinance O-21-10 and resolution R-21-176.
I'll make the motion to table both ordinance 0-21-10 and resolution 21-177.
Yeah, I'll second that one as well.
Thank you. Roll call. Councilman Bonovich,
Yes.
Councilwoman
Yes.
O'Donnell,
Yes.
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond,
Yes, sorry.
Deputy Mayor Russo,
Yes.
Mayor Berger.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think we need to really pay more, we need to sit down and get together and have this discussion.
Agreed.
I want to say thank you to the professionals who joined us tonight. Thank you so much for sitting here with us. And, you know, hopefully we could come to some kind of resolution on this as a team.
Thank you, Ms. Beam and Ron. Thank you for being here.
Good night.
Okay, thank you. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Adjourn.
So I believe at this point, I can say that I would ask for a motion to close the meeting. The one thing that I do not have, and I am sorry, is the next date for the next meetings,
May 25th.
May 25th. So I would like to, I would like a motion to close the meeting tonight. And I would also like to add that on May 25th, we have a council meeting to resume discussions on this and also moving forward all of our processes in council. So may I have the motion?
Mayor, before
Motion to
I-
adjourn?
Excuse me, I just want to
Yes.
make the motion. We have not announced that we're going definitely live. Will that come later on, Manager Keegan? Or-
Yes, we will make that announcement shortly if we're able to.
Okay, thank you. I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
And I will second.
Oh, yeah.
Councilman Bonovich,
Yes.
Councilwoman O'Donnell,
Yes.
Councilwoman Richmond,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Russo,
Yes.
and Mayor Berger.
Absolutely. My tuna fish sandwich is waiting.
Have a great night, everybody. Stay safe.
Good night.
Out.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Have a good night.
Good night.